Welcome to another exciting episode of the Small Council. We're going to be discussing Season 6, Episode 2. We've all read the books. There's 5 books out thus far, and up to Season 6, Episode 2, which is what we're going to be talking about today, the name of the episode is Home. As you can see, Tony Teflon's not with us tonight. He will be joining us shortly, and as soon as he joins, we'll backtrack and get him in on the parts we've already talked about. The new format is going to be that we're going to rank the episodes, we're going to talk about likes and dislikes, then we'll each get some chance to talk about it, and then we'll have a discussion, and maybe some predictions and questions after that. So let's start with some introductions. My name is James Johnson. Thank you all so much for being here. All right, CharlieInWesteros, the magnificent, magnanimous CharlieInWesteros. How are you doing, Charlie?
Pretty good, pretty good. I apologize if I disconnect once in a while. My internet's acting weird, and I might have to leave for a few minutes later on, but otherwise I will be with you guys all night. Also, I have my own channel, as most of you know, CharlieInWesteros. Be sure to check it out with my own reviews for Game of Thrones and other videos. Thanks for having me, James.
Absolutely. I'm lucky to have you. So, Charlie, how many glass candles out of 10 would you give this episode?
Well, since I gave last episode 8, which, when I think back on it, might have been a little generous, I'll give this one 8.5. It was a good episode. I generally liked it. I know there's been some things that were contentious, but we can talk about that when it comes time to that.
Wonderful. And I'd have to agree with you. I'd be giving it an 8.5 too. And my wonderful, lovely mother, LaDonna. How are you doing, Mama? She got to unmute herself.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me? Hi, folks in the chat. I've been watching y'all. I see some newbies in there. Glad to see the old ones and the new. This is a great episode. Can't wait to talk about it.
How many glass candles, Mama?
Well, I gave Hard Home like a solid 10, I think. I'd have to give this one close to a 9.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I gotta say it's a good episode. We'll get into the nitty-gritty in just a few minutes. Clare Gray, how you doing?
Oh, wait.
Hi. We're having some problems. Well, we were having some problems with sound. So if that happens again, just wave and let us know. So you usually see me hanging around with this guy, and we're doing reviews that usually come out on Wednesday morning.
Tuesday night, Wednesday morning.
Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. So we have a very kind of casual discussion, just a discussion between us that everyone can kind of join in on. We get some really great comments, and we're glad to be here tonight.
Rating.
And the rating, I would say, I was going to say an 8, actually, because in our show we do Maester's Links, and I gave it 4 out of 5. But the more I've had time to let it percolate, I would say I really enjoyed this episode. So I'd nudge it up a little bit and give it an extra glass candle. So 9 from me.
Oh, yeah. Your pigtails look lovely, Claire. And Maester Payne, they only pale in comparison to that beard. Well, how you doing?
I fucking love this episode, and it's a solid 9, hands down. I thought it was great and fucking lots of meat to it, so perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Good stuff. We're going to discuss all that. So, Niko, what's going on in the world of astrophysics?
Yeah, nothing much. More like enjoying living in Padova and all the things Italy can offer. World of astrophysics is fun as usual. A lot of things being discovered as we speak. And as for this episode, I don't know. I know people are gonna hate me for this, but for some reason, I prefer the first episode over this one. I don't know why. It's just a general feel. To me, it was also like a filler episode, and I don't want to give it more glass candles just because they brought Jon back to life. I know that everybody's happy because of that, so I'm gonna give it 6.5. So it's half a candle less than the last episode.
Okay.
It's just a personal feel. I don't know why.
Well, you give yourself some leeway for some better episodes, so I can get that. Go for it.
Yeah, okay, that's it. And I'm really glad to be here, and hi to everybody in the comments, with us live now and commenting. People, I love you. Thanks for all the discussions we have after the episode.
One question I do have for you, Niko, before we move on. Am I correct in saying that they just discovered gravity waves this week in your bed?
Yes. I'm gonna kill you.
Her husband's visiting. All right, so TeeBaby, how you doing?
Hey everyone. Glad to be here to talk about it. I feel so good that Niko gave it a 6.5 because I gave it a 7. I liked it, but still certain things I didn't like. I don't like the fact that everything's getting rushed. So certain things that we would have loved to see draw out, like the Roose being killed, or even Euron with Balon. So it's kind of like I wish those weren't so rushed so we could really, get that impact. So I didn't like about that, but then again, I loved Theon with Sansa, and yeah. So I can't wait to, and of course Bran. I love that. So I can't wait to get everyone's feedback.
How about some glass candles?
I'm gonna give it 7 glass candles.
Oh, that you did say that. Sorry, my bad.
It was a good episode. I'm not hating it, but I feel like Niko, where it did feel fillerish, yet still rushed somehow. So I think they can slow down with just jumping from one person to one person to one person like that. Oh, and Tyrion. I did enjoy Tyrion, so that's why we're giving this a 7 out of 10.
That's fair. That's fair. So since we're going to go ahead and get into the dislikes, let me go backwards and go to the two that got the lower scores. TeeBaby, I gotta say, I kind of see where you're coming from on that rushing aspect of it, because Roose's death just seems so. There's a lot we didn't get, like Peaceful Kingdom of Quiet People. There's a lot of his personality, his history, the skins on the walls of their family that we just didn't get, and they're cutting it. And do you feel like they're doing this because they want to streamline it? They don't want to waste time giving background that they feel is secondary to the main storyline, TeeBaby?
No, I think what they're trying to do is get us to where we need to be. Like, I don't think that Roose being killed is the bigger issue, but what Ramsay's going to do once he has power. So I think that's why they're rushing this story a little bit, because they want us to get to this big battle, which I think might be our big episode, is that big battle in the snow. But I think that's what they're trying to do. It's so much story that they're trying to do, and the more I think about it, they're trying to give us like 20, 25 hours of like 2.5 books. So when I think about it in that aspect, then I'm like, okay, I get why they're rushing things, because we have to get to the really main events. So I understand it. It takes, like, you seeing Roose die, and then you're trying to process that, and then you go to the next scene, and then Balon dies. It's like, it was like, oh, okay, like, what was the point? Which is why I kind of disliked it a little bit.
That makes sense to me. Niko, what are some things you didn't like about this?
As I said, I think I have a personal connection to Bran's chapters, and meaning that I really enjoy them, and I understand that it's really hard to put it on screen, and they cannot do Three-Eyed Crow with, like a root coming from his eye and all this. But to me, all the scenes, to me, it's more interesting the way the Bran, physical Bran, is like connected to this tree and everything, and then of course the visions. But I don't know why it looked like it was done poorly. From like a technical point of view. Maybe I just expected more. I mean, who am I to judge? Maybe they wanted to spend more money on dragons or something. I understand that, but it was kind of rushed. And then I was watching this episode in bed with my husband. It was like all these things happening, and you were for 5 seasons we were like it was more or less slow pace, and now and everything it was too much. And then. What else? I mean, I forgot. This comedic things with Tyrion were kind of forced. They were not too natural. What else was there that I didn't like? This scene with Hodor. I mean, it was unexpected for me. I did not expect this backstory on Hodor. And I don't know if I disliked it, but I was just, I have to decide yet. And it was just cut. It wasn't like cut the way Martin does it, like, oh, something interrupted, but it was, I don't know. And the whole Jon resurrection scene, I mean, it was good. It was acted very well, but, and I want to say that I will own that I really thought that they're gonna resurrect him on the episode 3, but if you take and I based my prediction on the fact that the next episode is gonna been called Oathbreaker, but apparently they counted the day that he was killed, from the last episode from the last episode of the 5th season, right? So it's 3 days, like, more or less, that he was dead.
Okay.
Because obviously, I mean, we're gonna talk about it, the Jesus connection. So yeah, I mean, but anyway, I don't know exactly what I didn't like, but I mean, if you compare it to the first episode, in the first episode you had this really Dornish scenes. And even with all of that, I will say that I prefer the first episode. Maybe I was so struck by the last scene in the first episode with Mel and the mirror. I think it was done really, really well. And now this episode is just, okay, whatever.
I can respect that.
So that's
and
my...
we'll get some more discussion about it in a couple seconds. I'm making some notes as we go.
Yeah.
Maester Payne? What's some things you didn't quite like about this episode? You liked it a whole hell of a lot. What's some things you might have had some pet peeves about?
Dislikes was the Arya scene. I thought that was a bit cheesy, namely because you have the waif talking to Arya on like the right side, and Arya's swinging forward trying to hit her, which just seemed stupid to me. It just seemed ridiculous. Like everybody said, the speed of the show, the pace. Roose's death, I thought, could have been handled a lot better, which everybody said, and I think Niko just touched on it. And Claire said in our review, the Christmas Carol aspect of Bran's vision, where they're just sort of walking through, like, this is your life, Brandon Stark sort of thing. I thought that was a little bit cheesy.
Ghost of Winterfell Past.
Ghosts of Winterfell Past,
Jacob,
sure.
Bloodraven, Jacob Marley.
I guess we'll go to Claire now, too.
Is it just dislikes at the moment?
Yeah, just dislikes for now.
You
can come up with anything while she's talking, MP, to add to that. Let me know.
No, I didn't. I actually ran through my dislikes pretty quick. I got way more likes than I have dislikes.
Awesome. Claire?
Okay. I think that I would agree with what everybody said about the Roose scene. For me, it wasn't a criticism of the acting at all, but it just felt, although I enjoyed lots of scenes, there were several scenes that just felt slightly off, or I ended up with like questions for more questions for more questions. And one of them was the Roose and Ramsay scene. So televisually, fantastic, really well acted, lots of drama, edge of the seat kind of stuff, but from a nerdy, somebody who gets involved in the minutiae of stuff, it kind of left me wanting. And this was one of those scenes, just again with TeeBaby around the details and the semantics. Roose didn't have his throat slit. He was stabbed, and it just felt like this really slow fall backwards. He could have at least said, "You fucking bastard," yeah. Or just something. But it just felt like this really slow fade away, and then like a bit of a tumbleweed moment for me. So I wouldn't, maybe not dislike, but just kind of left me feeling a little bit awkward with lots of different questions. In fact, there are lots of questions that I have actually in each of the scenes, and so it's probably easier if we go through that and as part of the discussion when we go through the discussion. But just some obvious things that maybe other people can answer quite easily, but just with the Bran scene and the vision, my understanding was always that it was part of the trees, through the trees, and it was just I just couldn't understand the fact that they just suddenly appeared in like the training yard, and then Bran seemed to kind of like very easily astral project. I mean, I've thought about that since, and I've got other thoughts for that. But some of the scenes were unclear to me. I think is probably the best way to describe it, rather than dislike. But yeah, that's how I felt.
And I wrote down something similar to what you said most recently about the tree, and I'll get to it in a minute. Mama, what'd you think about your dislikes?
Again, I'm with MP. I don't have very many, and I have to say that I think that most everybody who reads these books are pretty imaginative folks to carry on reading soon to be 7 books. If we didn't have a big imagination, I don't think we'd hang with these books. The show can't capture our imaginations. So I give it creds for doing what it did without it being hokey. I mean, you know, that tree scene could have come off like some parody of something, and it didn't. It wasn't what we expected, but I thought it was good, and I don't know how else they'd make that leap from the tree into Winterfell's yard unless they did some cheesy fade out and come in. I thought it was better just for us to jump right in. The other thing, I agree with you wholeheartedly that, first of all, the Roose dying scene was shocking. I thought it was well acted, but Claire, he didn't need to have his throat cut. He went out exactly like he killed Jaime, who ultimately fell backwards. So I didn't have a problem with that. I said this last week, and I'll say it again. I don't like the writing for Tyrion right now. I think it's subpar writing. I didn't think that I'm your friend. You know, I know your mother. I mean, come on. That a 5th grader could have written that. And then at the top of the stairs, if I ever do that again, punch me in the face. I don't think that's good writing. They could have made the same effect by using better lines. But we have to say, they're not using George Martin's lines anymore. You know, they don't even have a source material to go from. So they're making it up, and let's face it, they're not geniuses like George R.R. Martin is, or master storytellers. I don't have any problem with the Hodor thing. I think it's fascinating, and you're right, Claire. They're leaving us tidbits they're going to fill in much later, so I don't have any problem with that. Those are my problems with it. The rest of it is glowing.
Making notes. Wonderful, Mama. And Charlie, what you think? Some dislikes.
I think a few of us had some comments to make. I think Niko wanted to say something before that, and MP as well. So maybe you want to go back to them first, and I'll say my thoughts after.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. Niko, what you want to add?
I don't know if we mentioned the what's her name? Fatwalder's baby that she just gave birth. What the hell? I don't understand. When did this happen? Happening like for how long she was pregnant, and I don't know, they just jumped right in, and I have a I don't know, it was a problem in a way for me. They really rushed. I mean, I give David a Dan all the time, like I understand, but come on guys, just you know, think about these things. It's like Littlefinger running around Westeros, you know, like Littlefinger teleport, and now this baby is like immediately she just gave birth. That was bad.
So you're saying that it's a pacing issue?
Agrees with me.
MP, what were you going to add?
It was just LaDonna had brought it up in regards to Tyrion. I'm actually, one of my dislikes is the fact that we don't get Tyrion's darkness. We're not seeing that aspect of him. His arc throughout the later books, where he's fucking just an angry son of a bitch, and it just seems way too comedic. That was another one of my dislikes, and that's all.
That is a fair point. I'm going to make a note about that. And Charlie, go for it.
Yeah, I think most of you folks said what I had to say on the dislikes. I guess I'll go through them just in case I miss something. I agree with LaDonna wholeheartedly on the Marine scene this time around with Tyrion and Varys. It seemed really corny lines that were delivered there, and it didn't seem very witty and clever, which is what we're used to with Tyrion and Varys, in my opinion. I know a lot of fans of the books weren't super impressed with this episode specifically, and in a manner of speaking, I can definitely see their points. It did feel a little rushed at times, and maybe there were some things that were predictable because the way we, sort of hyper-analyze the show and hyper-analyze the books, we're set up to expect certain things, whereas other things are a little bit more unexpected. I know I personally felt that of course, the the Balon Greyjoy scene seemed very predictable. I even felt that the Ramsay assassinating Roose was somewhat expected on my part. Granted, I did not see it going down the exact ways it was portrayed, especially with the Wald's execution, which was pretty gory, in my opinion, even though we didn't see anything. Honestly, it was mostly just minor stuff that I had issues with. I think for example, Bloodraven, it's mostly book-to-show stuff, which I can't really get too angry about because they're different mediums. But as an example, Bloodraven, he's not so Bloodraven in the show in the sense that he's just some old guy who doesn't really come across as the same book character we're introduced to. So, not to say I disliked that, but it's something I kind of would have liked to see. And perhaps it's the hint that they're going to change certain things for the shows with respect to these characters. Like maybe Bloodraven is just a three-eyed raven or a three-eyed crow, and he's not really a Targaryen. You know what I mean? They could be downsizing on those aspects just to simplify the story for the show viewers. Or they might just be keeping some information out just so that later on, if they want to do a prequel series or a spin-off or whatever, they can then add in those details after the fact without, having revealed it too early or too late, if you will. So that was basically it. Those are my oh, wait, and that was also one last thing. I think this episode did just set up a lot of stuff. It was kind of an episode that was preparing us for things to come. I think this episode was kind of tying in loose ends to make sure that certain things are going to be resolved in upcoming episodes, or the real juice of this season is supposed to happen. That was it.
Well, my dislikes, I mentioned that I rated it an 8.5, and I put Hard Home in a 9.5. We haven't had a 10 yet. And I say that based on this being my favorite fucking show and books, so a 10 would be, there's never going to be anything that tops that. And if I ever give a 10, in that sense, and I've given 10s before, but in that sense, if I ever give one, it'll probably be whatever episode where everything comes together, and it's not really rating that, it's rating all the things that have been tied together. That said, my main issue with this is pacing, and I don't know whether it's a feeling, and pacing is maybe not the right word. My main issue is there are a lot of moments in this show or in this episode where I'm like, hell yeah, oh my god, holy shit, really? But overall, I left the episode feeling honestly the same way I did after the first. I just want more. That it doesn't satiate, and Hard Home satiated. At the end of it, I felt like, and that was all. That was how that had to end. At the end of this, I just felt like, well, what's going to happen? Which is, in a part, how we're supposed to feel, and I think that's intentional. Especially, the thing about these books is they're going to last for fucking ever. 10 years from now, this series, though not the same as the books, people are going to rewatch it, and they're not going to watch it like we are right now, one episode every week. They're going to fly the fuck through it. So, and it's going to pull them into the next one. So, with you, Charlie, saying the tie on the loose ends, I feel like that's a lot about what we're getting. The rush feels like, let's just get this shit out of the way. All we need is a little tiny bit for that scene, and we'll move on. So my complaint is mainly that it just felt like they were trying to get shit done, and that they wanted to move forward. So that said, we'll move on to some likes. If anybody's got any comments about the dislikes, if any of us in this council want to make comments about the dislikes, we'll do that once we're done with once we're into the personal time. So, likes. I liked so much about this episode. Tyrion with the dragons was just amazing to watch. It made me question a lot of stuff, which we can get into later, but just Tyrion with the dragons, when he touches the dragon, and he's just like, holy fucking shit, I'm actually doing this. Lots of scenes in this were a lot crammed into a little. The mountain killing the guy, the Cersei and the Jaime and Tommen scene. But again, I feel like all this is set up. I love the comments about religion. There were a lot of comments about religion in this one. Euron was the shit, and I say that knowing that we don't really know what he's going to be. But the way he delivered the line, the moment of this entire episode where I was watching it and felt like that was fucking awesome, was the scene where Euron and Balon are on the bridge, and the wind roars at them really quickly, and the bridge sways strongly, and you see Euron with just his hands in front of him swaying with it, because that's what a boat would do, and he's been on a boat for a really long time, and it's not affecting him. That's his natural state, whereas Balon's old and probably hasn't been on a ship for a while since the rebellion, maybe the rebellion. So I loved the flashback. We fucking saw Lyanna. I mean, cool, it's little Ned, cool, it's Roderick, cool, it's Benjen. That's all awesome, don't get me wrong. But we saw fucking Lyanna. That's our first depiction of Lyanna, which is just fantastic. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff to like. As I said, dislike pacing, or better yet, the rushing aspect of it. And it's not so much the rushing that bothers me, it's that I don't feel like I'm enthralled in this, like, slow build-up sort of situation, which they did fucking... I cannot compliment enough how well they did Jon coming back. I know that's like the big thing that everybody's talking about, but the fact that we kind of knew it was going to happen, and they still... Oh, Charlie, I got you selected, I'm sorry. The fact that we kind of knew it was going to happen, and I was still on the edge of my seat, uncertain whether it was going to happen. Maybe it'll happen next episode. Maybe it's not. There was never a part where I was like, it's not going to happen. Is it going to happen later? So, Charlie, what are some things that you really liked about this episode?
I have a lot of thoughts. I had more. Oh, here's the big thing I liked about the episode. It left me with a lot of questions, and I will ask those questions later on in our discussion. But in terms of general pros for the episode, I thought there was some pretty crazy stuff that happened. Obviously, there were some nice nuggets of new hidden information, new things that made you question different things, different theories, different aspects of the plot of the show. Even though, again, I sort of saw Ramsay killing his father, and I found it not that I found it underwhelming, but it was what came after that really stuck out to me more, the killing of Walda. And I don't want to say it was the most horrible killing that's ever happened on the show, obviously, but for some reason, seeing a mother and a child getting, even just the image of it being devoured by a pack of hungry dogs as this murderous guy is just letting them out at her, it's strong, it's crazy. I mean, it's not Red Wedding crazy, but it's up there. So for some reason, that just left a bad taste in my mouth, in a good way, but a bad taste nonetheless. So yeah, that was basically. That's all I really have to say about the pros. Very briefly, I'll keep the other information later on for this discussion.
Okay, and about the baby, you nailed that. I mean, we got a situation where this horrible thing can happen, and we're just like, yep, that's about right, and move on from it. Mama, what's some good stuff you liked?
Well, I liked just about everything. I absolutely adored the Winterfell scene. Lyanna riding in like a centaur, as they called her in the books, where her mind is almost in her horse. She looked badass and beautiful and wild, and she loved her family, but was kind of a bit of a smartass as well. I mean, that's just perfect. And we've always said that Lyanna was kind of both sides, Sansa and Arya. Yeah, she's pretty, and she can look like a lady. She's got that long, beautiful hair, but yet she's got that heart of Arya, where she wants to roll it with the men, and I like that. Benjen and Ned were cast perfectly; they were darling. I really, really did like the scene between Sansa and Brienne. I liked it the way that they did a foreshot of Theon walking with Wood and then reconsidering that they better not build a fire right then. And then their personal scene between Bran and Sansa, which I found very interesting because Brienne says, Arya was with a man, he didn't want to leave her, and she didn't want to leave him. And I think we're going to hear those words not echoed the same way later about Sansa and the Hound. But she didn't say the Hound, and other people have noted that. She said a man. And I think that's important. And of course, Brienne did indeed know it was the Hound. Pod said that's Sandor Clegane. She didn't say the name, not because Brienne left it out intentionally, but the writers did it intentionally, because when Sansa and the Hound meet again, it's going to be a complete surprise for both of them. And so it'll be curious to see whether or not Brienne and Sansa had a later conversation where she tells her who the man was. I really loved the interaction between Tyrion and the dragons. It was almost like getting your first puppy, but much deeper. There was something really, truly internally magical about it for him, which it is in the books as well. We're going to talk about it later, and I won't go into it, whether he's a Targ. I have my personal opinions on that. We'll talk about that in depth later, I presume. And I really, really loved the resurrection scene of Jon. I thought it was paced properly. Some people thought it was too slow. I don't think so. I think it was a momentous occasion. It was indeed very Messiah-like. You needed to see the emotional impact of all the people in the room before it happened, and by God, you sure needed to see Ghost turn around and look. I thought that was perfect. There are other scenes in it that were good. The Cersei unraveling, pulling the thread out of her dress, I think that was just a great metaphor for she's coming apart. And so, yeah, I liked it very much. I even liked the super violent scene. I loved it when was it this one that the mountain jammed the guy's head up against the wall? Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was perfect. Boy, they didn't waste any time on that one. Boom, walk away. Drops mic and walks. So yeah, I really liked it. Again, we're going to go in depth with some of these issues later, right? Yeah.
All right, Claire, what's some stuff you really liked about this episode?
Well, first of all, 1-1 smash. Come on. Any scene that 1-1's in is going to be a like for me.
I got that.
There has to be no dialogue. It doesn't matter. 1-1 was amazing. We're just kind of like, oh no, LaDonna's just beat us to it with the unraveling, because I was just about to say, despite the fact that we're talking about the pacing and we feel like we're rattling through this, you can counterbalance this with some small, subtle, understated scenes that balance the pacing. I think sometimes there is another example of the subtlety. The horrific scene where Ramsay releases the dogs and they're going for, thank God we didn't see it, but you can see him watching it, and if you watch it again just for a very split second, he even looks away himself as though he can't. Even for Ramsay, the scene is too much, and I just thought that was a nice subtle touch. He looks back again, but it's just as he calls the dogs on, it's kind of, he just looks away as though he can't even bear it himself. The other thing that I liked was I thought that the introduction, I know we've had the Ironborn before, and we've been to Pike and we've been to the Iron Islands, but I think the setup for the story arc was handled, and Euron's introduction was handled much better than what they did with Dorne. I know we're not going to talk about Dorne tonight, but I just thought it was, in comparison, they did a better job. And the other thing that I would say that I really liked, probably my favourite scene actually in the entire episode, was the scene with the High Sparrow and Jaime. Just Jonathan Pryce's acting is superb. Again, that kind of subtle, understated, but seething under the surface. And just when he said, I know we'll get into this scene, but when he said, he starts to go through the seven, the mother, the father, the warrior, and he stops and looks at Jaime and kind of, he sort of sneers and hisses very subtly under his breath, and it's just everything. He does it 3 times actually in that scene, but everything about it is, I just thought the acting was superb in that, and also the reference to who are we? We are no one. We have no names, no family, and that just made me think, oh my God, faceless men. Does that mean that the High Sparrow is a faceless man? And it just, so my brain started going again with that scene. So yeah, that's what I liked. What about you?
That is sort of it, is when you get a show, an episode like this one that gives you the things that get your brain spinning, it just makes it worthwhile. Both LaDonna and Claire have now stolen tidbits. I was going to comment about Ramsay. when I was replying to what Charlie had just said, and LaDonna took the Cersei's thread one. But Woon, of course, and the fact that they don't actually fight when they break in, like they kill a couple, but it's this sort of standoff where they're not actually attacking and they're there to be friends, I thought was pretty damn cool with the wildlings. Balon's death, I have a lot to say about. What's that?
What do you like? What do you like?
The dragging out of the Jon's resurrection scene, like how they just kept, will it happen, will it happen, will it happen, just for so long, I thought was pretty cool. Cersei's spy, so the guy that the mountain kills, there's actually a spy in there that gives her the information. At least that's what my thinking is. So that was pretty cool. Just the meat of the episode in general, and Bran's sort of progression ahead of almost what Bloodraven expects of him, I didn't expect to see that, and that was kind of neat. And exactly, Lyanna's there, so fucking 3 cheers. That's about it.
Hell yeah, 3 cheers. Niko, what's some stuff you liked about this episode?
Okay, so I don't want to be the, oh, I hated it so much, I didn't like anything. You know I'm not like that, so at least I'm trying not to be. So here we go. For some reason, one of the favorite things in this episode for me was the 1-1 scene. I don't know why, but when that guy shot him with an arrow, I said, and I was quoting my really good friend from Missouri, she's a writer, and she often says, poor choices were made. And that's what I said a lot to my husband. There was a poor choice. I don't know, I really liked it. It was funny in a way. I mean, the guy got killed, but it was funny. And I don't know, I love 1-1 and on the whole giant part of the story. The next thing I liked was Robert Strong, again, killing a guy. I didn't like, of course, I don't know if I need to say that, I didn't like person being killed. I liked how they showed in this 1-second scene, he just squashed his head on the wall, and that was enough to show how dangerous he is. The next thing I liked was Ghost scene. I preferred Ghost with the whole Jon's resurrection. It wasn't as perfect as I imagined. As LaDonna said, yeah, we imagine in our heads completely different thing, but it was really nice, and I loved the Ghost part. You see this connection to the Ghost with Jon. I loved the way Roose was killed. It really was a parallel to the way he killed Robb. And Ramsay's acting was really nice. Mel's acting was nice, and Theon's acting. Then I love the damp hair scene. I know we're not getting damp hair. I don't know if they're going to say that this is damp hair, but I love this scene when they are the funeral of Balon Greyjoy. The setting was nice. The photography or whatever, how you call the scenography, was really nice. Then Tyrion, the scene with Tyrion and the dragons. I love that Tyrion knew what to do. That something needs to be done. They cannot just sit idle, in the pyramid. So he took upon himself to actually change. Let's release the dragons and see what happens. And that he approached it with some kind of knowledge, in a way. I mean, he didn't know what to expect because he never seen a dragon before. But, knowing to show some kind of empathy toward dragon, I'm not going to hurt you, I want to help you or something, so they will sense it. I loved it. And the last thing I really loved was Claire said this one-upping between Jaime and High Sparrow, and this is the moment actually where you're really starting to see High Sparrow's colors, that he is a fucking bastard. And yeah, so you see, I loved a lot of things, but 1-1 scene was amazing. So that's it for me.
Wonderful, Niko. Took some notes on that one. TeeBaby, talk to us about what you liked.
Okay, so of course my favorite was Tormund. I loved that. Him fighting and growling, he was just my favorite. I definitely loved the the mountain head crush scene. I definitely loved what was it? One smashing that, and then it just when they did that. Even though I don't really like the fact that Hodor used to be Willis, it makes me really. It makes Bran Morgan into more fucked up than we. Because he's shown that he's aware and he noticed things, that he noticed Bran taking over him like that is just really messed up. But if you go back, and I know I keep doing this, but if you go back to season 4 when Bran walked into him to kill Locke and he's looking at his hands like, what have I done? And then you look back at that scene where they first start and Onan's like he won't fight, like it makes you so sad for Hodor and just like but anyway, I love that. Also, I love the Theon scene with Sansa because I just think that I don't think he's going back to Pike, because if you go back, and I keep doing this to you guys, but if you go back to the scene where he first meets Ramsay and he's there, Ramsay's tricking him, and he thinks he's confessing everything. He says, I didn't really kill those boys, the other guy did, and then they burned the body, and then he's saying, it's too late for me to make my father proud, and he's crying and he rubs his tears off, and then he says, my real father died in King's Landing. So I think that, and then when you jump to the scene where Balon's saying he lost 3 sons, I think Theon already knows that his father, like that connection is gone. Home for him, I do think, is Winterfell. But I still think that the gift is Theon. I just have some weird feeling about that. Also, even though I hated the fact that it was rushed with the Ramsay and Roose scene, I love what happened there, because it was like Roose kept threatening Theon, and he kept doing it as if, he can outmaneuver Ramsay. And I think once he got stabbed, we didn't hear anything or call him, because he was so shocked that he got outmaneuvered, because he kept saying, I think Roose recognized what was going on, and he tried to outmaneuver the situation, kind of like do a little finger thing, but it didn't work in his favor. So I did enjoy that. So those definitely were my favorites. And, of course, I definitely loved the Jon resurrection scene and how she did it, and how it's kind of the same way that his name slips me came back. Because when Arya's looking at him, he's breathing really slow, but he's still talking. And when Jon comes out, he's like, because it's the first time. So, yeah, I did enjoy the different angles that they did, but then I hated it because I swear I saw something in Tormund's eyes, and I'm probably tripping, but then again, I think I might like that because I'm looking into the flames too much, so I'm like right into it. So, again, I like that about it. So.
Damn, TeeBaby, you're really fucking good at this. I bet you liked what you saw in Tormund's eye.
I am so terrified for him right now because his eyes, like, I watched it again yesterday with my friend, and we were watching it, and I was like, what was that? And I thought it was a glitch, but the more I look into it, the more I swear I'm seeing things. So maybe, you know what, I advise everyone to go back and let me know I'm tripping so I can clear my mind off of this, but I'm nervous for him. But it also makes me think that Roose isn't the one on the cross flame. That's not him.
All right. I'm just going to respond generally, and then we'll get into the political, the personal discussion. So we can just chant off. So this will be the long part. Charlie will be next. So get ready. I'm going to respond first to some of the stuff y'all said. TeeBaby, I didn't see what you're talking about in Tormund's eyes, but I'm not 100% sure if you're saying you saw something like that looked magical, or whether you saw something that. Go ahead.
The way that the light, because I found it weird that they kept showing the way Davos was looking real close, and then the way that they were showing Tormund. At the beginning of the scene, they showed Tormund's eyes like a profile shot. So I was like, okay. And then they made sure to show you how he's looking down, but then they move around and it's blurry, and then they go in and out to focus on who they want you to look. But the second time they focus on Tormund, and he's looking, you see his eyes, they just look like the fire is really bright. But then it just flickers. It doesn't make sense if the fire, I guess it's the reflections of his eyes, because it seemed like they were focusing on that. Like I said, I'm probably going crazy and overlooking this, but I don't know. I didn't get why they kept doing it, so I kept looking at his eyes.
Yeah, you and Tormund need to get together. So Tormund is Mance Rayder, in my opinion. And if there was something done intentionally, that's what it was. And you all laugh at it, but it's the truth. Y'all gonna shit your fucking pants when it happens. All right, talking about. I'm gonna start with what y'all were talking about with dislikes. TeeBaby, you mentioned the battle in the snow being the climax of this episode or this season. I think you're right, but that battle is not in snow. Melisandre's gonna force that battle at the one that happens at the end of this season. But it's not the one she sees in her vision, because the battle at the end of the season is not in snow. Just needed to add that. And I think that even though they're going to win, she's still going to feel weird about it, and then she'll probably switch sides. Niko, the three-eyed crow, you mentioned that he's not going to root from his eye or a birthmark or not one eye. I have a problem with this, too. I don't have a problem so far as the show goes. I have a problem because when they do a prequel, if they're going to do a prequel, they're going to do Dunk and Egg, in my opinion. They're going to do Dunk and Egg, and they're going to do the Princess and the Queen, the Blacks and the Greens. And if they do the Dunk and Egg and the Princess Dunk and Egg, then they have lost the ability to make Bloodraven albino, arguably. One-eyed, have a birthmark on his face. They've lost a lot of that, and we'll see what happens. The one eye he loses in the, I think the War of the Five Pit. No, it's in the Blackfire Rebellion. Niko, you also mentioned that it was the comedic comments with Tyrion. This is the second time in 2 episodes that Tyrion's mentioned Varys' penis. Second time. And this time he did it in front of Grey Worm and even felt bad about it. We associate Varys having no penis with his effeminateness. But Grey Worm's not effeminate. And, of course, you can keep a high-pitched voice. That's what the castrati are. Kids that have their testicles cut off to keep them having a high voice. But Varys is a woman. That's why they're doing that. I know this is all theory, but that's why they're doing that. They're setting it up because Varys is a woman, and Varys and Tyrion are meant to be not an item, but contrary pieces against each other. The thing about the Hodor, it's definitely, first of all, as far as the TV show goes, and I have a problem believing that they're switching this from what's in the books, apparently he's not full giant. We'll see. But that's apparently not a thing, since he could talk. That said, if in the books he had his voice at one point, I think it's very interesting that, and I'm pretty sure I'm right, when Bran is inside Hodor's mind, Hodor even thinks to himself, Hodor. He doesn't think in words. He thinks in Hodors. So whatever issues he has are something deep. Arya being cheesy MP, you mentioned that. She needs... I liked what this scene did by emphasizing that she needs to want to delete herself, who she is, more than she wants food, shelter, water. That's the important. It's apparent, I think, but that's the importance of that scene. I understand. I think I missed what you were saying about her swinging at the waif and the waif not even being in that direction. I think it went over my head, so I missed that part. But I think the scene itself was setting stuff up, and based on the trailer for trailer for next episode, it looks like they're going to be going pretty fast with Arya's story. I like what you say, Clare Gray, about it's through the trees in the books, and I did mention in my personal notes that I'm not sure the television show watchers, the non-book readers, understand that, because it's not really setting it up. Obviously, when Bran touches the werewoods, he has that vision, but that's more of a hallucinogenic vision rather than a vision of the past. So I think they're going to have to explain that a little more if they want people to understand the significance of the trees. Mom, you mentioned that they can't capture our imagination like a book can. I think that's an important point, because a book can show you what's in their mind and explain what they're seeing in a hallucinogenic way, whereas a television show, it's not just words. You have to map it all out and CGI it and flip it over and figure out how you're going to do it. I was watching the television show Louie the other day, and there was a magnificent scene where there's an argument that builds to a climax, and there's a storm that's been building all season long, and when the argument reaches the climax, you hear a in the background, and you're like, it's part of the scene, and then they all realize that it's the TV that's in the room, and he turns the TV so everybody can see, and it's an announcement that the storm's coming, and you're suddenly facing this television screen watching the newscast completely unaware, externally, like overtly aware, that they have not cut. They have just, everybody's having the argument, it's built to a climax, and then they zoom in on the TV, and the TV's there. So it's anyway, that's, I think, what they're having difficulty doing with the complexity of the books. They just can't get into the depth of Roose without wasting a lot of time. They just can't get into the hallucinogenic nature of going scene after scene after scene of the Bran's visions without losing something. You mentioned it, Mom, so I don't have to, but I'll repeat it. Roose killed like Jaime was killed. That's exactly what they did. They did it intentionally, although I have to admit, like Claire said, that it was odd for like Robb was killed. Sorry, my mom's correcting me. Roose was killed like Robb was killed. And Claire mentioned that it seemed odd that Roose didn't say anything. I gotta agree. It seemed odd, but nothing needed to be said, apparently. A peaceful kingdom, a quiet dead Roose. I don't know. So I disagree with you, Mom, about the dialogue with Tyrion. I think that it is well written. I just think that they're cutting to the chase. They don't want a whole lot of dialogue. But I know what you're saying, because they're not getting a lot of depth. They're cutting straight to the chase. I mentioned the penis situation, and I think all of us kind of thought, is he going to send Missandei down there in the hopes that she's going to tame these dragons? Because that's not a good idea. But then he did it himself, and the showrunners do that, and we know, especially book readers, but even TV show watchers, that those dragons can kill anybody in a hot fucking minute. And they didn't Tyrion, but that's only because the writers made them not. I mean, they could have just burned him as easily as they could have burned somebody else. However, we've not seen them kill somebody unless it was a mistake from hunting or Dany told them to. I believe that's correct. So, but the point is that when Tyrion tells Varys, if I ever have an idea like that again, punch me in the face, I found that funny. Laugh out loud funny, because they're playing with the idea, number one, that they could have just killed him. But number two, they could have just killed him, and that would have really pissed us all the fuck off. But I also think that it's foreshadowing for something. It really made me question, when that scene happened, whether Tyrion's going to ride a dragon. Because they've certainly set it up. Tyrion built a saddle for Bran. Tyrion is apparently enthralled with these dragons. I still got to say, it makes so much more sense for Tyrion not to be a Targaryen, which I don't think you have to be a Targaryen to ride a dragon, but for Arya, Sansa, and Jon to be the riders. It just makes sense to me, but we'll see. A lot of my theories are thrown out on this, and I have to say, 3 theories I lost tonight. I lost that Jon was coming back as a white, I lost that Hodor is a baby giant, and I lost that Roose is a skin changer, an immortal skin, not immortal, but long-time skin changer. That said, the books we're going to get are different than the TV show, and that said, I still get to go point back and go, hey, I said it once.
Can I go now, James?
No, wait, I'm going to... Charlie's going to go. We're going to go Charlie's direction. So Charlie, Mom, Claire, Maester Payne, Niko. Dark Tyrion, you mentioned Maester Payne. Tyrion's got some issues, but I think that he's distracting himself from it. That's my excuse for what's going on. He's separated himself from it, A, because he's focused on what's going on in Marine, B, because he's not paying attention to it, C, because he feels like Dany's put him on this journey, but I think that that's what's going on. But you may be talking about something deeper than that, that his character itself is dark, and he's making fun of Varys, but I think that's what you're getting at. These are like sly bullshit comments that aren't that funny, and they're not really capturing his deepity. Charlie, you mentioned that it's hard for... I wanted to say, in response to what you said, it's hard for us as book readers to watch this as only a show. especially for us on this council, because we talk about this every fucking week. It's hard for me to detach. I'm kind of watching it, expecting things and reinterpreting things all the while watching, and I really got to fix that and stop doing that. Talk about our likes. Mom, Theon mentioned home. I agree with TeeBaby. Home is Winterfell. And that's why we're meant to question that, because he says home and it cuts to the Greyjoys. But he said earlier, my real father died in King's Landing. The gift to me is Theon. And you made a great point, Mom, that Brienne did not tell Sansa that it was the Hound. So they've handled that and don't have to redress it with Brienne, but I bet they do. And Brienne and Sansa can be alone and they can have an intimate moment. Either it's not going to be mentioned between them again, which I think is unlikely, or the opportunity for Brienne and Sansa to have a close moment where Sansa can say, he was the only one who protected me, and we don't need that, but it gives an opportunity to insert certain lies that imply greater things. Clare Gray, 1-1. Oh, man, you and TeeBaby both mentioned it. I think other people mentioned it too. But that dude who shot 1-1 knew immediately. As soon as his finger pulled that fucking trigger, he knew he'd made a mistake. And I who the hell knows? It doesn't matter. But I bet that was a mistake, like an accident. Oh, God damn it. 1-1, that guy is done. So Ramsay with the dogs and Fat Waldo, when that happened, I kept thinking of Varamir Sixskins chapter where he's in the wolf and he says the Dugs have the milk in them, and the part where he says the meat on the pup is the sweetest. And that's what I kept thinking when that scene happened. When the mountain smashes that head, I thought that scene was really well shot. It didn't take us out of it at all, even though it was obviously fake. I mean, not obvious in the scene, but in hindsight, no shit. But it really worked well, and his brain matter was on it. It reminded me of the Duncan Egg Tales, and I won't spoil it for you, but there's a thing that happens with brain matter in the Duncan Egg Tales. Yeah, so I mentioned you and Tormund, TeeBaby. I just can't say it enough. That is Mance. So let me read some of the notes I got. This episode had a lot of regime change. We got the Greyjoys changing. We got Jon back, so that's a switch. We got Ramsay killing Roose. A bunch of regime changes in this one, and that's true of the first episode of the season 2. Tyrion's story about his father, that story was enough to keep us going, to find it interesting, and to make that scene mean a lot. But if you listen to what he says, he tells his father, all I want's a dragon, and it can be a small one, like me. And his father fucking laughs at him. Holy shit, his father fucking laughs at him, and then Tyrion cries himself to sleep. So Jon's back. That's definitely some Jesus imagery. He is wearing the linen loincloth and had the scars, and then she bathes him, which is something that happens in the Bible. The girl bathes Jesus' feet. David and Dan in the after show said, I think it was the after show, they said somewhere that the reason that scene was cut the way it was because Ghost knows they have such a connection that Ghost knows what's up with that. If Jon's going to come back, Ghost is going to feel it. That's fucking bullshit. He's in Ghost, and we're going to hear about it later. He's going to tell Sam or somebody else, I saw everything. You did this, and she did that, and it's like an out-of-body experience while you're on the operating table, only it's a real fucking out-of-body experience. Again, I can't stress enough how much the suspense was built up so fucking well in that scene. Jamie says the gods kill more than the rest of us combined. No matter how you work it out, that's true, unless the gods don't have power. The High Sparrow said, I fear the mother, the father, the warrior. And then he stopped. That means something, and I don't know why. He picked those three, and those three were written in there intentionally. Obviously, the sparrows come out and protect him after that, and he also kind of implies through that scene that he fears gods. He fears the gods, which is ironic since the gods aren't there to protect him. It's his fucking minions. I think he intends the best. He's just slowly eking it. It seems to me he's slowly eking into the power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. I mentioned earlier Euron's going to be fucking awesome.
Did he just move it to the center?
I can hear you, Maester Payne. I don't know if you know. What are you talking about?
No comments.
So Euron's going to be I am the storm, and I loved him standing strong as the bridge swayed. All right, something to think about. I mentioned before that Cersei is the queen from Snow White with the magic mirror. Only the mirror isn't a mirror; it's her children. They reflect to her. Her children reflect herself. As long as they live, she lives. Their achievements are her achievements. In another way, Tommen is a mirror because no matter who he's with, he kind of reflects that conversation. He's talking to Jaime. Excuse me, I apologize. He's talking to Jaime. He reflects that conversation. He talks to High Sparrow. He reflects that. He talks to his mom. He's like, I want to be a hard ass, and I don't know what to believe, but I do agree with my mom that he and Cersei are going to be at odds by the end of this. Love the fucking flashback. I do feel like I mentioned this already. I do feel like the non-readers, book readers, aren't going to understand the visions yet. About the giant knocks down the gate. That there's people inside this area, and there's a giant knocking down the gate. That is what happened in Hardhome. Only there wasn't a giant on the other side. So I think this was arguably could have been a play on what if there's a whited giant, a giant that is a white. I thought this was funny, and this came to me randomly. Skagos and Rickon. If Rickon were to show up, somebody was talking about Rickon showing up and fighting the battle and pretending to be on Ramsay's side. I think that's bullshit, but something to think about. I like it led me to a random thought. What if Skagos sees Winterfell as an island? Not Winterfell, Westeros as an island. They're probably not very educated. Westeros, they're kind of landlocked, they feel like, or they stay on the land. And there's just another island as far as they're concerned. That just made me think that if Rickon ever convinced them to come to Westeros because it's his, then when he showed up and all the people were there in support of him, he could go, I told you, it's my island. That's from Braveheart. Roose, I do need, this is important. Martin said on his Not a Blog, and I had problems finding it before this video, but if I find it, I'll post it. Martin made a point after this episode of saying that deaths in the show are not necessarily deaths in the books. And the only reason, he said that before, but to me, he's stressing that some important deaths in the TV show are not deaths in the book. All right, last thing. When, is it Grin? No, it's Ed. When Dolores Ed says the only traitors here are the ones who shove their knives into the hearts of their Lord Commander. Shove their knives into the hearts is a reference to Azor Ahai. It's also, in my opinion, the only traitors here are the ones who shove their knives in their Lord Commander's chest is a reference to the Night's King's death. Drink! I don't know that for sure. But we'll see.
James, we need to moderate you.
All right, that's it.
Sorry, honey, I love you, but we need to moderate you.
I disagree. Charlie, your turn.
Can I just clarify something? Is this a period to respond to others or give all our general thoughts?
Both.
We kind of did a bit of both. Both?
No.
Okay.
Well, it's up to you. We're going to have a discussion thing after this if you want to do it then. But now's your time for whatever you want to talk about.
All right.
Hey,
Well,
can I say one thing? I kind of, at this point, would like Charlie to go like he used to do, area by area, and let us...
No, Mama, we're not doing that. I appreciate your thoughts.
Okay.
Alrighty, maybe next time. What I'll do is I'll split up my thoughts. I'll respond to things you said, James, and stuff that other people have said, because if I do all my thoughts, I'll have nothing left to say for the end of the video. So I'll just respond to what you started saying. You mentioned the idea of Mad King Aerys plus Joanna Lannister equals Tyrion the Targaryen. It sounds like you don't believe in that, which I agree with you with on that. And I now agree with you on a different aspect. I agree that I don't think you need to be a Targ to run a dragon anymore either. And a few people actually mentioned the character of Nettles in the comment section of our discussion. And I thought it was an interesting point to make because actually when you look at Tyrion in this episode, he was being very nice to the dragons. Nettles lured in Sheep Stealer by being kind and nice and feeding him food. So it makes for an interesting parallel there, I believe. Hopefully that's the parallel they're kind of going for in the show anyway, assuming they even are referring back to the Princess and the Queen. Speaking of the Princess and the Queen, I agree with you. Princess and the Queen would be an awesome movie. I don't think they would ever make personal opinion, I don't think they'd ever make Duncan a TV show. I could see it being a great cartoon series, though, because then they could actually change things up completely from what's in the show, because it would almost be a standalone series, which is more or less attached to the books, potentially, than the show. And they could also do a lot more with it, too, I think. What else was there? Okay, TeeBaby mentioned something about Theon going back to Winterfell. I think a dark way to look at Theon's journey, though, is if you kind of compare him to his book journey, because as far as we know now, based off of the preview chapters of Winds of Winter, he is supposed to be executed by Stannis Baratheon, who, of course, is still alive in the books, as far as we know. I think a dark way to look at his story in the show is to say maybe he's going back to Winterfell almost in a suicidal fashion, kind of seeing that he has nothing left in the world, even helping Sansa isn't, the right journey for him. So maybe he's going back there and he's going to face his own death, potentially. I hope, in a way I hope not, because it'd be interesting to see his character progress a little bit more and a little bit better than what he's been doing for the last few seasons, but I don't know, I thought that might make for an interesting comparison, though. They're assuming they do kill off Theon, assuming Stannis kills Theon in the books or executes him. Niko mentioned the dragon sensing a friend aspect on the show. I thought that was an interesting point. It was something I had a few people on my own video discuss with me, certain aspects of that. One person, I should wrote down the names. Next time I will do that, folks. I will write down your names and I'll give you credit where credit is due. You can find those comments on my video if you're interested. But someone mentioned that Drogon, this idea of sensing friends, or dragons knowing who's a friend and who's an enemy, there's something that potentially contradicts that. If you look at Drogon, I think in season 4, he kills a child. Maybe it's a minor issue, maybe it's something that contradicts what's set up now, but you could also look at it in the way that maybe since Drogon is a little bit more wilder, he's a little bit more erratic and crazy than the other two dragons, and he's also, at the time, maybe he was an undeveloped teenager who just wasn't fully aware of right from wrong at that point in time. Just saying, it's a possibility. Or it could be that, Tyrion's really a Targaryen, and you have to be a Targaryen to fly dragons. Could be also that. Going back to the comparison you, James, and LaDonna have made between Roose's death and Robb's death, very true. Another thing to add to that, I would say that Walda's death also mirrors Talisa's death, because she just gave birth to a child, whereas Talisa was pregnant with a child. Child is killed in her womb, while, of course, Walda just gave birth, and the child's basically killed right then and there. So another parallel there would kind of really mirrors that setup in the 3rd season. Let me see what else. A small thing to remind you folks of is that there are only 21 episodes left for the entire season, so when they do speed through things, I think there is a reason to it, and I think there's also a reason left. There's a reason as to why they're kind of not focusing on certain aspects versus others. And I say 21 episodes because there's 8 episodes this season, 7 next, and 6 in the final season, unless I'm mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, so 21, if I can count. What else was there? So, James, in terms of your theory, because you mentioned you've changed your mind on a few theories, do you, however, think, you can answer this after, but do you think that Roose's story will be different in the books from the show? And if so, do you think maybe your theory has a chance of realizing itself in the books potentially, just because there was a lot more room for development there? I'm just curious. I'm still not on the same page as you are in terms of Tormund being Mance, but that's just me. You also mentioned a lot of something that had to do with murder in this episode, some type of slang. I wanted to reword what you said and mention there's a lot of kin slang these first 2 episodes. A lot of us have mentioned it in our reviews already. I mentioned it in mine. I know other people have as well, so it's nothing new. But it's interesting to note that, first episode, Ilaria kills Duran, her, I guess, brother-in-law in some way. The Sand Snakes killed their cousin in Trystane. This episode we have Euron killing his brother in Baelon. Of course, Ramsay the son killing the father in Roose. I'm trying to draw a parallel to that when I think about it on the top of my head to what the High Sparrow said in terms of fearing the father or the warrior and something else, but maybe there's nothing there to that. Somebody else think on that while I look at my other notes. What else do I have here? I guess I'll address this right now. In terms of Hodor, a few of you have mentioned Hodor and the fact that he could once speak at a time. I think this is an interesting development for the show, because I think this character could potentially replace 2 characters from the books. One person is Patchface, because we know how we have Patchface who has all those predictions and those weird symbolic sing-songy sayings, if I recall. in the scene where Bloodraven is with Bran, they're about to leave the dream, he mentioned something about how it's easy to drown in dreams, and it reminded me a lot of Patchface. I didn't do too much digging into that whole metaphor. Maybe you guys can talk more on that. The other character, however, and the more prominent one I wanted to bring up in terms of comparing Hodor in the show to a book character is potentially, again, just potentially, Hodor, and we're probably going to find out actually this coming episode, so it's going to be answered very fast, but crackpot theory, it's possible that Hodor might be replacing the character of Howland Reed in the books in terms of that other person who is the witness as to what happened at the Tower of Joy, potentially, R plus L equals J. It could be that Hodor is in fact the character who will reveal the information as to who Jon Snow's real parents are, if he's ever able to regain that sense of speech. And I only say that because we have a scene with him as a youth playing along with Ned and Benjen Stark. And there's also an image of, not really an image, we see Lyanna Stark riding around on a horse, and it immediately made me think of the tourney at Harrenhal, actually, where we have the Laughing Knight. And right when I saw her do that, I was like, oh, she has to be the Laughing Knight at this point. Maybe, maybe not, but just in terms of the show, in terms of how that was set up, it just reminded me of that. I don't know if we're going to get a tourney at Harrenhal in the show specifically, but if we don't, I think this could potentially act as a semi-fill-in for the tourney, just because we'll have, or at least a precursor to the tourney, just because we have the setup of a young, clueless character in Hodor / Willis, who is, big but can't fight, can't really do all that much. So if something happens to him during the tourney, or even later on, but he's still a witness to various events, maybe he could act as an informing character of, past events. And I only say maybe something happens to him at the tourney because in the real tourney of Harrenhal, we have Howland Reed who gets injured, or who gets injured by those two squires. Well, maybe something terrible happens to Hodor or Willis, and then maybe Lyanna Stark is the one to avenge him. And maybe that's also why we don't really know what goes on, or why Hodor can't speak, because we don't, as far as we know, Ned hasn't spoken on it, neither has Benjen. Well, maybe they just don't know. Maybe it's something that only Lyanna and Rhaegar potentially have witnessed. So kind of adds on to that idea of maybe Hodor is that great witness character. Because I don't think they would put in the fact that he could once speak in the show unless it was at least somewhat important. And again, somebody in my comments mentioned that, and I totally agree with them on that. So thank you for that, whoever that was. I have other thoughts. I will save them for the next part of this conversation. So that's it for now for me.
All right, and just to clarify, what we're doing is after we did the dislikes, we do a general discussion where each of us talks about anything we want to in response to other people and just talking generally. So, Mama, why don't you go next?
Okay. I want to address what my opinions are on the Hodor thing. I think it might have been a little bit. There are several ways to look at Hodor now that we know that he was a pretty normal-looking, although probably half-giant child. And I love the way Nan grabbed him by the ear and dragged him off. She said, he's not going to fight. He's a stable boy. Well, then I have to go back to that long discussion between Tyrion and Jaime in the cell when they talked about Cousin Orson, who was kind of a dimwit who had been kicked by a horse. I don't think that's what it is, but I do think we're supposed to think maybe that's what it was. I am kind of the opinion that Charlie has, and I thought about that for a couple of days. He really kind of acts like he's got post-traumatic stress disorder. And Martin has talked about his experiences in becoming a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War, and we all know we have the broken man speech where it is so heartfelt about these men coming back from war who are decimated both emotionally, physically, and psychologically. I'm wondering if Hodor wasn't exposed to the prior war, and I'm wondering if he had such a traumatic event that whatever it was, the only thing that stuck in his mind were the words that equated to Hodor, like hold the door. Someone else has mentioned that as well. I don't know that that's what it is, but I think it's a PTSD event, and if that's true, then we're going to see him come back later, because I do think there's a bittersweet ending to this, and I hope he survives, as what he was. Okay. I want to clarify one thing on the Blackfire. Varys connection when James said that he was a woman, which we've discussed, James and I, many times. Somebody said, why would we ever come up with that theory? Number one, all the Blackfyre men were killed in that war, theoretically. And if they were, then Varys, who was a woman or a child, might have been kicked out and forced to be a beggar like he says he was, and he would or she would want to wreak revenge for her family, which kind of makes sense with bringing a fake Aegon in, who could maybe be a Blackfyre if maybe Varys and Illyrio had a child. I don't know. But it also makes sense because Varys, if he is a woman, could never ascend to the throne anyway. So we'll leave that alone for a moment. Those are thoughts on that. As to someone asking in the chat, how in the world is Bran able to see Winterfell through his dreams, his visions? There aren't any werewoods at Winterfell. Well, there is a werewood in Winterfell, but I don't think that's how it works, and we've discussed this previously. I think that when people die who have some connection to the old gods, if they are able to, they are able to put their past memories into that werewood connection. And, you know, Maester Lewin kind of said that to Bran and Rickon when they said, I don't want to leave you. And he said, I'll be right here. And I think that's the connection, that the thoughts go in as histories to those trees. And if you will recall, there are countless skeletons underneath the werewood throne. I think those are people who have put their thoughts into it. So it's essentially it's a repository of historical memory for human beings. Hi, Liana! You're taking away my thunder, child.
Sorry. I had to get the charger. This is Liana.
Isn't she beautiful?
Yeah. Okay. Go for it, Mama.
My favorite dog, by the way. Okay. As to Charlie's thoughts about Drogon and that child he killed, when I read the books, I thought that was a setup by the Harpies. I don't think Drogon intentionally killed that child. Maybe he did kill her, but I don't think it was intentional, and I'm not sure he even did it. I thought it was to turn the city away from the dragons. So we'll see about that. With respect to Leaf, looked very different this time, and even than the last time we saw the Children of the Forest, they were very CGI'd. I don't know if you know that, but they showed some videos online of how they made that child look different, and it wasn't just by makeup. I think they're reptilian. I think there's something about them that's more related to a Dragonian line, and again, that could come from the origins of the human race, if indeed they did have, quote, dragon's blood way back when. Charlie or James, I think it was James, you mentioned that it was curious that when Jaime, and I agree, Claire, he had such repressed anger there. Oh, my God, he was seething over. But, James, I think you mentioned that they did not talk about all 7 of the icons. They stopped at the first 3. The ones they left out were the Maiden, the Crone, and the Smith. And I find that very interesting. And the Stranger. We won't go there yet. But the Maiden, the Crone, and the Smith are important to me because the Maiden is Sansa coming to her on her own, her ascent to a throne. The Crone may very well be either Melisandre, who we know now as a Crone, or it could be Lady Stoneheart coming back as the Crone. And the Smith, who was left out, is Gendry. And Gendry is important because, as I have theorized, and James, I think he is Cersei and Robert's original and legitimate child, which would continue the Baratheon line. And they didn't throw the Baratheon line in there for no reason. I mean, come on. It's a huge line. It's what started the war. There's a Baratheon who's going to be extremely important, and he's the blacksmith. So, he's the Valyrian steel guy and possibly has a right to the throne. I don't think that'll really happen. I don't think he wants it, but it's there. The last thing I'm going to say at this point is that this is something that really bothers me. Everybody calls Dolorous Ed. It's not Dolores. It's Dolorous, which means sorrowful at. He's like Eeyore. It's always that way with him. So that just is a little nitpick on my part. So that's all I have to say about that. Loved this episode.
Oh man, I missed a little bit of that. I got an echo from you. I missed a little bit of that. Charger was not plugged in, so my computer was dying. Clare Gray, give us your thoughts.
Okay, well, like I said, I've got quite a few questions, so I think they'll come into the discussion a little bit later or when we're asking questions, but I particularly wanted to ask everybody what they thought of that resurrection scene. Was it just a straightforward, it worked and it didn't work? How was Ghost involved? Why did Davos even suggest resurrection? He's never seen anything like that before. Yes, he knows that she's got magic, but where the hell did that notion come from? I just want to ask people those questions as we get into the sort of open discussion. For me personally, I think that this episode was interesting in terms of Bran. We forget that because we've not seen Bran for such a long time, there has been a gap there. And we can tell that from Mira sort of being fed up about, they're in there, hooked up to the trees, having all these, like, time-traveling adventures. We need to be doing something that it's going on out here. And to me, that makes it sound as though she's a bit bored and it's been going on for a while. And also the shock on Bloodraven's face when he notices, wow, he's just disappeared down into right into the middle of the vision. And I think there is this kind of, how powerful is Bran now? How powerful is he going to get? How surprised is Bloodraven at that? There's almost this kind of passing the baton. I think Bloodraven is going to be a much watered down televisual character, definitely. It's going to be more like, tutor and mentor and that kind of relationship. And I think Bran might be outgrowing that. And I think if we think about the trailer with the Night's King, that when he grasps Bran's arm, I think he's kind of saying, you think you're powerful? Actually, I see exactly what's going on here, and that shocks Bran because he thinks he's much more advanced. So I think there's a power Greenseer wargy thing going on between the three of them, and that will become more apparent. The two things that I wanted to say very quickly that came up for me in the episode was James, when you were talking about Tyrion speaking to Missandei and asking those questions, that made me laugh because that relates to something sort of professionally in my work and in my experience when we the work that I've done in the past particularly, it's visiting people that are quite dangerous and have dangerous pasts and dangerous backgrounds. So quite often you're on your own as well in those situations, and you have to do what we call professionally a dynamic risk assessment, which is something that you do very quickly in your head. And the questions that Tyrion was asking Missandei was a dynamic risk assessment. He was asking her questions about probability. He was asking her questions about likelihood and severity. All of these kind of technical questions he was asking. How long have you been around the dragons? How often? What kind of behaviours do they display? And I thought, even though, yes, he was extremely excited about going to see the dragons, and it was a real kind of whoop moment for Tyrion, a dream come true, but he was sensible enough to ask those very crucial questions about his own personal safety. So I just thought I'd throw that in the mix. The other thing that I wanted to mention is about the title home, and Theon makes that very clear, and I know Niko's going to say something about in more detail about what she thinks about what that means, but I think that, if we can get into maybe later on when we talk about predictions for the next season, because I think I've got something to say about who I think the gift is, and also I think there's going to be a deliberate rot for Ramsay's Winterfell that just destroys it from the inside out, and that's how Ramsay gets it. And I think Theon may end up being as a nod to book readers, because we have had subtle nods to book readers already. I know, again, we're rushing through with the pacing, but I think Theon could become the Hooded Man in the TV show and be part of a kind of sabotage scenario at Winterfell. Yeah, but that's all I've got to say for now.
All right, and James, I've kind of lost the plot here. Is this just us going on our own thoughts, or are we answering other people's, what we've listed, other questions that other people have said?
This is your chance to talk about the episode, to respond to anything anybody has said previously, to really talk about whatever you want. If you're talking about questions from outside the thing, let's wait for that till later.
No, I don't.
Yeah, anything.
Okay. So first thing is, I love James's image of Euron on the ship versus Euron on the bridge. I thought that was fucking amazing. I did not pick that up, but that would be cool if he's just swaying like he would on the ship. I think that is awesome. LaDonna, it was a great point that Brienne didn't say it was the Hound. I didn't catch that. And I've spoken about Charlie's what I wanted to say, which Claire took the words out of my mouth about Ramsay looking away. Niko had a great point about poor choices. Like, if you shoot a giant in the shoulder, that's kind of ridiculous. Why the fuck would you shoot a giant in the shoulder? Like, why not the head? I don't get it.
It could have been just a misfire, and like James said, it's like
James said,
fuck.
Sure. TeeBaby, passion is a good thing. Don't ever lose it. This is just my responses, my notes from everything you guys have said. I do disagree with you, James. I think that Arya wants to keep her identity. She wants to know of home. So I disagree with you there. And there's argument there I have loosely written down here about when she throws the coin purse into the ocean, that's her family, and she separates the one coin, which is the faceless men. So she takes the one out and she separates them. I would ask LaDonna to explain why why Varys had the wizard shipped, what that means. In regards to your theory there. And in regards to how they can do things in Winterfell, like Bran and the visions and stuff, you get a scene in, I'm assuming, Season 1 where you see Winterfell from afar, and the weirwood tree is actually growing over, like you can see it from miles away. So depending on where you have to look from. If it's the face, well then maybe not. But if it's just a leaf, you can see whatever the fuck you want, which is kind of where my head's at. And ER is my favorite Pooh character. My thoughts on the actual episode, I found it was an interesting juxtaposition. You get, after Balon's death, you have them preparing him to go into the ocean for his, trip in the afterlife, and then the next scene is preparing Jon to come out of it, which I thought was very cool. Like it's kind of two things, so same cool juxtaposition. Cersei is unraveling. It was awesome how subtle it was. Like you just see her with a thread, and that's it. And you just have to why the fuck did they show that? It's cool. I love that. Hodor, look at the size of him. If he learned how to fight, he'd be unstoppable. That's an allusion to the mountain. The size of him, if he knows how to fight, he's unstoppable. It also goes to Woon breaking through the fucking door. And I think LaDonna, at one point, I don't know if you still hold to this belief, but I think you might have touched on it today, that you had a theory at one point that Hodor is the king of the giants, perhaps being stored at Winterfell. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but if that's the case, that's an allusion to that too. It's like if he could fight, he'd be unstoppable. What's that say? Oh, the visual that we keep getting through the episodes of somebody getting pushed off their perch, and I know I've talked to LaDonna about this as well. It keeps happening. We have it with Balon this episode. We have it with Lysa. We have it with, I think, even Dantos at one point. I think he was shot or something first.
Like
but
physically
you get
pushed
people
down.
pushed off their perch when they're aspiring to high goals or they're in a high position, and then it's done. So I have something there. But the weird, interesting thing is Bran, which is the very first time we ever see this. If you read his book chapter, that whole chapter is him thinking how fucking awesome he is when he's climbing, how he's on top of the fucking world and everything like that, and he gets pushed off. That's a very interesting notion. Bran is in the box, aka Tyrion, which is he's stuck inside. He's watching the world go by, and Mira has issues with this. She wants to go out and fight the war, but Bran's inside sort of like figuring out what's going on. It's kind of an illusion or metaphor of us sort of watching the world go by outside our windows or through our TV screens or whatnot. Had a comment in our review from Jackie Hines, and actually I probably will bring this up later. Yeah, I'll scratch that. I'll bring this up later.
Predictions.
For predictions. But yeah, I think the thing I was going to say for the fall from power, it's that image. It's just it's a quick thing. It just happens and it's abrupt. One moment you're up, and then somebody comes along and you're done. And that's like they've been showing this repeatedly to us. And I think that's about it. Oh wait, James. So this episode, Roose dies. And I know you might have some thoughts about stuff that happened here, but this episode is called Home. So I'm not exactly accurate on your Roose theory, and I know it ties into the Night's King somehow, but if he's dying in the episode called Home, maybe he's going home to whatever that is. Tyrion puts down the torch when he goes to see the dragons. He has the torch, and they make a big scene of him putting down the torch, interacting with the dragons without the torch, and then picking the torch up afterwards. So there's arguments for and against Tyrion being a Targ all throughout that scene, of course. Another argument is the box. Dragons don't do good in containment. Tyrion's been kept in the box his whole life. He's stunted. He's small. So that's a big fucking Tyrion Targ argument there. I personally don't think that, but last few months or so I've actually been going back to that one. And the Night's King arm grab, I guess, will be predictions as well. So that's it. That's it for me. Sorry for my ramble through that. Can't hear you.
No reason to apologize. Pete, those are fantastic points, and I took a bunch of notes, and I'll answer your questions once we get done with this. All right, Niko, you said you got a lot to say. Let's have it.
Okay, guys, so yes, I have a lot of shit to say, and I'm going to try to be quick about it. First of all, I want to ask LaDonna, because you said Lyanna is your favorite dog. I thought Hound was your favorite dog. And then before I start, I know LaDonna. Before I start with everything, I want to say hi to some familiar faces in the chat. I don't know, guys, if you noticed, but we have some guys from last year. I remember Pyronucleus and Petkane are with us, and I want to thank them for joining us with us again. Then in the chat room is also Niko from God Thrones podcast, my really good friend. Then Robert, my colleague from Innsbruck. And I want to mention a few of the guys that I've been chatting with. It's Ian Renfro, David Adams, and Ricky Hunt. Thank you for joining us and keeping up with the Small Council. And I just called our friends, like our viewers, the small birds, because they are everywhere in Greece and in New Zealand. And I appreciate you guys so much. Now, okay, so the first thing. I forgot to say that I did not like that much Euron scene. because I didn't like the acting for some reason. Because I thought, you know how fans wanted Mads Mikkelsen as Euron, and he would be perfect, but I guess he was busy with other filming or something. So, or maybe I even in my head I pictured Jeremy Irons playing Euron. It would be perfect. But this guy is just not delivering it for me. And maybe I went too far. But did you notice? Because Balon said to Euron, "Oh, you went crazy on this ship during the storm," and he's like, "Oh, I'm the storm god, whatever, who cares?" But then after Euron pushed Balon, he acted crazy. Please, guys, go watch that scene and rewatch that scene and tell me if I'm seeing things. He really seemed deranged after he pushed him off of the bridge. Then, next thing, can I please take credit for Theon going back to Winterfell as his home? Because I said that. I was the first one who said that. I don't know. I hope they will do it because it makes sense. This is Theon's home. He went home to Pike. He wasn't welcomed there by his father. He grew up with the Starks. He loves Starks. He just realized that now that he said to Sansa, "I would die for you." So I think he wants to avenge them, and he doesn't care about his life. This is his mission, the way to redeem himself, and I think maybe he's going to be the gift to Ramsay. Oh my God, so many things. So this part where High Sparrow mentions only 3 of the 7-faced gods. So he says mother, father, and warrior. That's Jaime, Cersei, and Robert Strong, right? That's how I saw it. I don't know if you agree with me. Because he wants to take them down, and then if he takes them down, he has absolute power in King's Landing. TeeBaby. As for the Tormund scene, I didn't see it like that. I really love that part when they're trying to resurrect Jon and it's not working, and Tormund is just like looking at the whole scene, and just like and gets out. It was such good acting. He was just dismissing it, and now I was thinking about Mance, and I really thought they might have done it, but no, because we would see the change in character if it was Mance, and Tormund's been acting Tormundish throughout, like since the beginning. So I really don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. I should mention Arya scenes in the first and in this episode. They're short, but they prove a point. They serve a purpose to show her progress in her fighting skills while blind. That means her senses are so high, and she's gonna be really good. But also in this particular episode, they are doing the just trying to show that she's lying. She's not no one. She is Arya Stark, and she will never be able to escape that. So they're just trying to remind us of that. And I think, Jaqen obviously sees it, but he doesn't care. Then the giant. Wait, just okay. I'm not sure who of you on the panel mentioned that dragons are good with. I said that they can sense friends, but then somebody mentioned that Drogon was actually he actually killed a baby. I think you should not forget that they will understand if you want to help them or you don't want to hurt them, but at one point, if they're hungry, they don't give a fuck. They're wild creatures and they need food. As for the Children of the Forest, they changed the makeup, they changed the look of the. Did you address that? I'm not sure if I catch that. I don't know what to think. My first reaction was Instagram makeup tutorials or YouTube makeup tutorials, because it was not close up. Later they released the pictures and then you can see the makeup, the special effects or whatever. But from really like a little bit in background, because the leaf was, or if this is the leaf in the background, it looked like a lot of makeup, like you see like drag queen or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. And then the most important part. Oh yeah, to address what MP said about the werewood trees and how they communicate. How can you actually see the what happened in the area in the vicinity of the tree? It's not just the leaves; it's also the roots. The roots are more important, I think. And lastly, Willis/Hodor. I think we should mention that they cannot say Walder, as is originally in the books, because of the rules on television. You cannot have two characters name the same name. That's why they change Asha to Yara. Now, what happened to Hodor? I think we're gonna get the answer soon. But what if he saw something really scary? I don't think Starks would. Obviously, they would not hurt him intentionally, so maybe it was some kind of accident. But I mean, even if it was just, hit in the head in the wrong way, it would not leave him with this post-traumatic stress disorder. So it has to be something really scary. Maybe he saw something in the crypt. But if he saw something in the crypts, that would mean that he would be afraid to go there, right? And he was in the crypts a lot of times with Bran. But I'm thinking he saw something that scared the shit out of him, and he just couldn't, cope with this scary thing. What else? Yes, what LaDonna said about Nan, and I'm really want to say that it looked like she was protecting him. She would not allow somebody to hurt him. So not that he wants to play with somebody and you can get hurt when you're a child and play, but it's not that he would hurt somebody, but maybe somebody would hurt him and she wanted to protect him in a way. And James, you said that you don't think he's a giant. They say specifically in this scene, I don't know if it's young Ned or young Benjen, but they say, "Oh, you're half a giant. You could beat anyone." They specifically use this word giant, so I think that it's kind of canon to me. My head canon that he is in fact half of the giant. And somebody said maybe 1-1 or I don't know who, and old man, but I probably think it would not be physically possible to have a male human and a male giant, so it has to be a different way. I think I covered everything. So yes. That's it. That's it from me.
Well done, Niko.
And thank you guys for your insight. It's really
absolutely. Thanks for doing the shout out to a bunch of people. TeeBaby, hit it.
I think I'm just going to go over things that you guys might not have mentioned because I don't want to be redundant. I thought it was interesting that Jaime confessed his sins to the High Sparrow. So I wonder what's going to happen with that. That piqued my interest. Also with Ramsay, I guess another reason why, to Niko's point, that Theon's going home, because in that scene where he trapped Walder and the baby in there, you saw how well trained he trained those dogs. And dogs, they always go back home, or normally they'll go back home. So to me, I think Ramsay trained Theon so much when he tortured him that Winterfell is home to him on different levels. It could be past the fact that it's about Sansa, because he referred to him and said, "I could never do what something about your family." So he's already taken himself out of that as him not being a part of the family, even though at times he finds himself a part of the family. Now, I don't think he's scared to die just because. No, I think it was weird that he was scared to go to the wall, because in the books he wants to die. He wants this torture to be over. So I thought that was kind of weird that now he's like scared to get beheaded for the things that he's done. So I don't know if he's torturing himself more for doing that or whatever that might be. You guys talked about Hodor. I was halfway I liked it and halfway I didn't. And one thing I also liked is that Ollie, they locked him up. They didn't kill him. I mean, I wish they did, but he's locked up, so I'm glad that they got that out the way. It definitely showed you that Ollie does not regret what he did to Jon, and I find that something that, I mean, there's no doctors to cure him, so when you're dealing in this world, like, he's basically a baby Joffrey growing up, so he's got to go. Also, yeah, I think you guys basically tackled everything. Oh, also one thing that I did like about Jon's resurrection scene was her cleaning the body, because it reminded you of the Faceless Men, and it just reminded me that they were slaves that ran away from Valyria. So I was like, oh, so I like the fact that they're bringing that all together to make you, for all the stories to kind of connect. But one thing I forgot to say that I don't like is that I think they're becoming a little too predictable in this series, but I think it's because we've been talking about the books for so long that we kind of see some of these things happening already, or the fact that they cut out so much sub-storylines that we focus so more of what we're seeing now that we can predict certain things to happen. But other than that, I loved everything you guys said about, oh, another thing with Davos. I think that the reason Davos only said the 3 gods was because he was dealing with the old gods. He was dealing with the drowned gods, and he was dealing with the red. Like, it personally affected him in some way. That's why I think he mentioned those 3 and not all the gods. But also, I've been trying to wrap my head around why exactly he's trying so hard to get Mel, you know, to get back to her old self or whatever. And I think it's because he saw something. The way that he looked at Jon right before he's about to walk out, we don't think it worked. He looks at Jon the same way he looked at him when he was on the ground. Like, I think he's seeing something. Maybe they're not discussing it yet or letting us know exactly what he's seeing, but I think he's seeing something. That's the only way it makes sense for him to be going this hard. So, yeah, I'm just keeping mine short. I love everything you guys had to say.
Absolutely wonderful, TeeBaby. I see that a couple people had something they wanted to add, but now we're going to get into the discussion stuff, so we're just going to do a back and forth for anybody who wants to comment. Maester Payne, you wanted to add something? About Hodor,
just about Hodor in regards to how he starts saying Hodor from actually communicating. The scene when Bran comes out of the vision, and I've said this in our own review, but I actually figured that I learned how to speak Hodor this episode, and Bran asked him the question, you used to be able to talk, what happened? And Hodor's the answer, but then you have this epic stare between the two of them, and what he said was, you did, you happened. I don't know if it's Brandon Stark Sr., like Ned's brother, or Brandon, but what he was inferring is Bran happened to him. That's what happened. I'm almost 100% on that. If you watch the look between the two, they extend it for a fucking long time. That answer that question, and then the next one is where's Mira, and he says Hodor, and it's just outside. She's out there. That was the only thing. I do think that it's very possible that the reason Hodor has lost his mind is because Bran warged him at some point in his life, and that's what's eating the brain from Hodor, is that influence into his head.
I think that's fucking brilliant, and it would be that you don't know the things you've done to harm others until you look in hindsight and take a deep breath and consider it. That's brilliant, Maester Payne. Mama, you want to add something?
Yeah, very briefly, and this is going to piggyback onto MP, but I didn't mean to piggyback on it. I was about to say something else. It's going to play in together. You know, we've posited that Bran is either related or is the Brandon Stark that we think is the Night's King. We don't know. It's just theorizing. And that Bran will be able to see past, present, and future, and possibly interact, because we saw the Night's King grab his arm at one point. though. Oh, hey, Tony.
It's the Don, Tony Teflon.
I didn't see. I snuck outside for a minute. I didn't see you. Hi, darling. Glad to have you.
Hi, how are you? I just got here, so.
I'm glad.
Hold up, Mama.
Miss nothing. Hi, how are you? I just got here, so you didn't really miss nothing.
But
anytime you're not here, we're missing it.
Oh, well, thank you. I had a very, very rough time with my automobile. Very terrible time.
Sorry, Tony.
Sorry.
Thank you for making it, though. I know that everybody's got their lives and stuff, and it's just wonderful to have you. Mama, why don't you finish your point, then we'll get Tony to talk.
That's perfect, and it's very brief. But to piggyback onto the Brandon Stark, Night's King, Brandon Stark, Wheel of Time thing, before MP said what he said, I thought maybe that he had seen something that Martin has not shown yet in the show, which is cosmic horror, which is the Cthulhu thing, where it's something so horrible that you can't even name it. And that's kind of what Patchface went. We think where he went, it was something so freaking traumatic that he could never come back and be his whole self again. And I hope that whatever, if it is indeed some cosmic horror, perhaps a Night's King, but if he saw a cosmic horror, I'm really hoping that Hodor can come back and that Patchface was the opposite of him, where he could never come back. That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Mama. All right, if I can introduce him one more time, the Don, Tony Teflon. Tony, we've been through this thing before. If you wouldn't mind just giving us maybe, obviously, let's get a little introduction since we didn't get to see you this whole half. I want to hear your glass candles, especially since that was your idea. I want to hear some likes and dislikes, and I want to hear what you generally thought about this episode. Go for it.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you, Debbie, for having me, and thank you to all the people out there in the chat, you know what I mean, everyone who's watching live. Sorry that I'm late, but, you know, I had car issues, and I have a nice new car, and I should not have these issues. So, but luckily, it's all covered, so I don't have to worry about paying for it or anything like that. So, I'm sure y'all have gone over everything, so I really don't want to rehash it. I'll just jump in wherever y'all are at right now. There's no need for me to go back and do stuff that y'all already did. I don't want to repeat things you probably already said. I'm sure you touched on everything. So let's
give us your glass candles. How'd you feel about this episode overall?
Oh, well, it's a 7. Now, you know, listen, a 7's a pretty high number. I know a lot of people have given me a lot of criticism. There's a lot of fanboys out there. This episode's a 10. No, it's not. All right, it's not. And if you want to sit here and debate with me that it's a 10, I would love for anyone to try to do that. It's not a 10. 7's pretty high. I just got to be real about it. You know what I mean? They're rushing. They're rushing everything. And for that fact, I can't give you a 10. And I said before, it's very predictable. Not predictable in the sense that I can guess it and figure out things. Listen, a lot of people can do that. But predictable in the sense that, you know, when you seen Ramsay come in the room and hug Roose, you knew he was getting stabbed. You know, you could see that a mile away. You know what I mean? There's no need. It's just predictable. The storyline, that was a disgusting scene also. But the storyline is just, it's all over the place. You know, Jaime Lannister, we were talking with Bar earlier about it. Jaime Lannister, he has no arc. He has nothing. I really don't know that they have any idea what they're doing with Jaime Lannister. Where he's at in the books to where he's acting in the books to where he's acting right now is totally different. I don't understand it. It's just, it is what it is. So I think it's a 7. I give it 7 glass candles, which is a good score. I was happy with the episode. I just didn't think it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
That's completely fair, and a couple of people said some stuff similar to that. All right, so where we are right now is that we're in the back and forth right now. It looks like we pretty much covered most of the stuff, but I got some comments in response to things people said earlier, and then everybody can just talk, and then we're going to do some predictions and questions. That's where we're at. A couple of things. I just read something on Reddit that talked about in this episode, Cersei asks Tommen what did they bury Myrcella in red or gold, and he says gold, and Cersei says that, well, that was always her color, but what Cersei's really getting at is whether Myrcella's shroud was gold. I thought that was really fascinating. Charlie, in response to what you said, I think Roose's story is definitely going to be different in the books. And yes, I think the overall story will be different in the books, but in not the main story. That said, I'm not getting rid of my opinion about the Night's King. I was not the one who came up with the idea that the Night's King is a rogue, faceless man. He has the ability to change skin, but that he does it from generation to generation, and that he's been around for a long time. I think I pushed that to the point of the Night's King. That became my part of it. So I still think that that's a total possibility. I've never felt that that was a guaranteed thing. It has always been a theory since I captured it, since I heard about it and made it mine. Been a thing that I've aspired to, but it's never been like the Night's King situation. But that said, I still think it's possible in the books, and Martin went out of his way to say that certain characters are still alive in the books. That doesn't necessarily, or will still be alive, or won't die the same way they did in the books. I think that's definitely possible. Charlie, the quote you were mentioning by Bloodraven is that, I wrote it down somewhere, the under the sea, what's it say? The sea, it is beautiful under the sea, but if you stay too long, you drown. And I definitely thought the same thing you did about Patchface. That's exactly what I was thinking when he said it. I loved your point about Lyanna avenging Hodor versus Howland Reed. I think that was a great point, especially if Howland Reed is the High Sparrow and they're trying to separate the two aspects, because to make it Howland Reed, it wouldn't feel as empathetic as we feel it was in the books. For Lyanna to be the Knight of the Laughing Tree and avenge Howland Reed. Claire, you mentioned the resurrection. You asked whether the resurrection had an explanation, or Davos's desire for the resurrection. I think Davos explains his thought process as well as it can be in the show by for wanting a spell to get Jon back by explaining she's the one who made him believe in miracles, not in a god. He makes a point of saying, "It's not, don't believe in a god. It's all the same to me, but miracles." And I think that having the Shadow Baby would be the thing. If she believes she's got powers, other people believe she got powers, and he saw her do that, maybe she's got something that will bring Jon back. So to me, I bought it. I love what you said about risk analysis. That's fascinating, and of all the characters in here, I think Tyrion would be the most likely to do that. So thank you for that. And I think you're precisely correct about Theon. There's two things I want to say about Theon here. Number one, I'm torn and also think that both are possible. I think that Theon, he says he's going home. Why would he go home unless he feels like he's got something he's got to do there? So playing the field underneath, try to kill people that are important and work his way to corrupting the system there is definitely something I think he's up for doing. Although I think also the other aspect of what I was mentioning earlier, the thing about Theon to me is that the Theon reek is not resolved. He was Theon when he saved Sansa, but Ramsay wasn't there, and he wants to go back to help, arguably, the Starks. But I don't know if he's capable of doing that as long as Ramsay has got him under his thumb. So what I love picturing is, and it's the same thing with, I've mentioned this before, it's the same thing with Gollum in Lord of the Rings. He helps them, Frodo and Sam, but he also is untrustworthy. They don't know whether he's Gollum or Smeagol. That's the question. And in the same way that's true, I love the idea, and I'm totally just painting this out of nowhere, I love the idea of Theon Reek being caught between Ramsay and Sansa, and both of them calling to him, "Ramsay, come here. Come here, Ramsay. Theon, come here. Theon, come here right now." Just like a dog with two owners that's got to make a choice. One beats him, and he fears what will happen if he doesn't go, and the other one's sweet to him and innocent. So I needed to mention both of those. Maester Payne, I need to clarify. I agree that Arya wants to keep herself. I agree with you 100%. The sword being saved. I don't think I spoke clearly. What I was trying to say more so wasn't that Arya wants that, but that the Faceless Men want it, and that that's supposed to paint our picture of the Faceless Men, because we're never told directly what the Faceless Men are. We're just shown bits and pieces. We still don't really know what their ultimate goal is, although they obviously want bodies in order to take their skins. The skins are used to hide who they really are, but who they really are is really no one, and that's what I was getting at. This is helping us understand that they want pure deletion. They want you to want to be no one more than you want to eat, breathe, sleep, everything, so that once you've really accepted it and become it, all the faceless, there could be 1,000 faceless men out there, all playing different roles, but deep down they're all the same. They're no one. It's just they're all just playing different roles. MP, I still don't think that Tyrion is a Targ, and I think that to the extent that they're playing with that, I think the point will be, if they are playing with it, and I think they are, that he loves dragons and is affectionate for them and cares about them and reads about them. They're playing with the idea that the same thing that was in Princess and the Queen with the drop of dragon. You don't need to be a Targ to do Targ things. And the whole idea of Targs being special, immune to fire, they're not. They're not any more exceptional than anybody else. They just happened to come to Westeros with fucking dragons, and they looked different. I disagree with you 100%, Niko. Tormund has totally changed since Mance died. Mance. But it doesn't mean a shit until we see that it's Mance. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But to me, if you go back and watch all of the scenes with Tormund, and again, I mean, I'm biased as shit on this because it's my theory. My mom's shaking her head. No, James. No. If I'm right, it all makes sense. If I'm wrong, well, it all makes sense. So we'll see. Also, Niko, the dragon didn't eat the child. It got burned. But if the dragon had ingested the child, he would have the child wouldn't have been intact. So I don't disagree with you that the dragons are hellions that can cause some trouble, and there was the dragon cannibal in Princess and the Queen that did a lot of fucked up shit. But I don't think that dragon intended to kill the kid, or at least did not intend to eat the kid. So although I agree with you that they're dangerous, I don't think that necessarily that they are all. I think the majority of them are they're like dogs. A dog is generally not going to try to kill a kid unless it's raised that way, or it's beaten, or it's not been shown that you can't fucking do that. Like, imagine a pack of wolves and one of the wolves grows up and starts nipping at the puppies. There's going to be some hell to pay for that, and he'll learn not to do that. And the ones who would do it are few and far between. Also, Niko, I didn't say that I didn't think Tormund was a giant based on this episode. I'm saying, or a part giant. I'm saying that the theory was that I said Tormund, didn't I? Hodor. Hodor. The theory was that Hodor was a baby giant, and that's why he's only battling Hodor. I'm just saying that seems out, at least for the show. Although I gotta say that if they're doing this in the show, this is something that I see being likely in the books too, although we don't know what's going to come of it. I loved the idea of Bran, for you, Maester Payne. I loved the idea of Bran being the cause of it. That was brilliant. And TeeBaby, you're 100% right about Jaime confessing his sins. That was fucking brilliant, and I did not think about it. Jaime confesses his sins to the High Sparrow, and I wonder if that's going to come back and bite him in the ass, because now the High Sparrow knows his secrets. He thinks he's being a badass, but now the High Sparrow knows. And I mentioned that I'm being a beat dog. The question is what he'll do when they both are calling his name. And that's all I got. Who wants to go next? Mama, go.
I just want to say that someone in the chat wants to know if James has fed his tiny Boston Terrier human flesh yet.
I gotta eat too. When I have a surplus, we'll deal with. Well, I'll feed them some. Tony, you want to add anything?
Me? Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, no doubt about it. We're just talking about just random stuff right now. Anything I want to just spit
anything
now?
You want?
Well, I would just have to say that I think that Mance is dead. Number one, I don't think that Tormund is Mance. If they made Tormund Mance and killed Stannis the way they did, that would just be crazy to me. That would just be nuts. So I don't know if that's going to be the case. As for the Hodor situation, I really don't. It seems like the leak is gonna be right. I don't like it that the leak is gonna be right. And if they make Hodor and and Howland Reed out and put Hodor down at the Tower of Joy, it's gonna fuck up the whole thing for me. I don't want to see big ass Hodor down there. I want to see Howland Reed with his little frog ass spear poking motherfuckers, and that's it. And I don't need to see Hodor lumbering his ass and belly bumping people. I don't want to see that. And I want to see what the books had. If that was the way it was supposed to be, then George R. R. Martin would have put it in that way, but he didn't. So there's a reason why he didn't. So I don't want this show. To me right now is to spoil things or shed some light on the books to me. And if it's not going to do that, then it doesn't do anything to me. You know what I mean? So I need some facts that are going to make it into these books, not just some fan fiction stuff just to pass the time or anything else like that. You know what I mean? So hopefully they get that better. As for the Jon Snow resurrection, I know they were going for maybe a practical effect, but a sponge and a little haircut, a little trim here. I mean, you could have did something better. I've seen you use CGI for other stuff that you didn't use it for. This was a time where you could have possibly did it just to make it look better, and you choose not to. I just didn't like it, not whatsoever. I'm not a woman, so Jon Snow's chest don't excite me. So that didn't. Maybe that's why people got all excited about it, but that didn't excite me. So maybe that's why I didn't feel it that way. And as for the fight scene with the giant, I thought it was good the way the giant smacked the guy against the wall, but I don't like the way they just charged in and stopped. I just didn't like that at all. Just and just stop. Really? Come on, man. I expected a little bit more than that. So that's what I have to say about
that. Why do you think? What makes you think Hodor is going to be at the Tower of Joy?
I mean, I've heard people leave comments inside of my on my channel that they believe that Hodor would take the place of Howland Reed and be at the Tower of Joy. So I have more than one person now. So I don't think so. If you look at him, you see that Lyanna was trying. Obviously, from that scene that they showed, Lyanna had taught him some fighting skills. She's over here like, go do what we taught. You know what I mean? So Lyanna had showed him some fighting skills. You see that he's saying if he was that big, how good of a fighter he would be, which foreshadows Bran jumping inside of his body and becoming that fighter that Hodor should have always been and taking over him and doing that. So it's quite possible not to show Howland Reed and just to put Hodor in his place. So I understand why people say that possibly could happen. I hope that does not happen, and that would make it so that if he takes an injury at the Tower of Joy, saving Ned, bumped in the head, and now he only says Hodor, or he sees something, and now he swears a pact that he can't tell, so now he only says Hodor. All these things people have said. I hope that it is none of that at all. I really don't.
I don't see any reason to think that Hodor will be there, and Howland Reed, the guy that's at the Tower of Joy, looks like Howland Reed. So I don't think there's any base for that either. Anybody else want to add anything? I see you, Mama, but let's see if anybody else wants to. Charlie, go ahead.
I can add this in later if we're into the predictions and question part of the discussion. If not, I'll wait.
This is the last little discussion before we do predictions and questions. Mama, go ahead.
Well, okay.
Sorry, no, Charlie. Charlie, go.
It was questions for you guys specifically to discuss.
Oh,
they were statements originally.
How's that time?
Okay. Few things. This one thing that was brought up already a little bit in terms of Davos and his desire to revive Jon Snow. Another thing I thought was kind of weird was that he seemed to be really kind towards Mel, despite the fact that she basically killed Shireen a couple episodes ago, last season. And who's also one of the few people he actually cared for. Now it's possible he just doesn't know that she killed or is responsible for Shireen's death. But considering all those things that are happening right now, and considering how nice he's been to Mel, I thought it was a bit surprising. So I kind of wonder if he doesn't know how he'll react to Mel once he finds out that she's responsible for Shireen's death. Was one thing. The other thing that I wanted to mention, I don't want to get down a slippery slope too much, but I guess I'll just mention it. It has to do with the northern household plots being similar to the books potentially or not. I don't think we discussed it. I missed a bit of the discussion earlier, so forgive me if I'm repeating stuff. But what I mean is that I wonder if the Manderleys, because we know there's 3 houses that are supposedly aligned with the Boltons right now. The Manderleys, Karstarks, and Umbers, supposedly, again. I don't know if the Manderleys will also feign loyalty towards the Boltons like in the books, only to undermine them. Are the Karstarks themselves internally divided, kind of like in the books, where one lord is supporting the Boltons, another one is supporting Stannis / Jon Snow / whoever. As for the Umbers, my personal hunch with them is that their plot is a little too difficult to follow as they are presented in the books to transpose it into the show because there's so much going on there. So especially considering I don't think the Freys and the Boltons will remain allies for long right now, given what happened to Walda, I'm curious to see how they're going to adapt the Umber plot. I can talk more about that if you guys want, but it's more of a question in terms of that. I know there's discussions about the Umbers having Rick on and bringing them to Ramsay, but we can talk about that in the prediction section. I just wanted to raise up the question about the households and their roles this season. Another thing that wasn't discussed, I don't think, and it's something I actually did not notice until one of my commenters told me about it, and I actually rechecked before this discussion, and that has to do with the Child of the Forest we heard. She made the comment to Mira that, and this is about Bran, she says, quote, "He isn't going to stay here forever, and out there he needs you." Again, I don't know if you guys discussed this, but I thought that was interesting because I always assumed Bran would be staying inside the Weirwood throne, whatever you want to call it. But this seems to imply to me that he is going to be leaving that area, and if he leaves that area, that could also change everything up in the story for the show, as well as potentially the books, because if Bran shows himself again, that means there's another, heir to Winterfell who has reappeared yet again, and that could also really complicate things for the North. Not saying he's going to, but that is what the Child of the Forest said, so I'm wondering if that's even true, or if that's the case, or if I'm misunderstanding what the Child of the Forest meant. Another thing was the Sand Snakes are still in King's Landing. It was alluded to slightly. They said they didn't find the killers of Trystane, but that they're looking for them, so I don't know what to think of this because part of me is a bit worried that they're going to have, the season go on and then the Sand Snakes are going to make really random reappearances where they're just going to troll people and kill off random people and then disappear again, which would be a little bit annoying, I think, but I guess we'll see what happens with that. I think the scenes at King's Landing were like a setup for upcoming things in terms of the confrontation between the Sparrows and the Lannisters, obviously. Nothing much to add there. And the pink letter thing, I don't know if you guys discussed this. Did you discuss the pink letter at all this review? No? Okay. So assuming Rickon... No, I'll keep this for the predictions part. Forget about it. That was pretty much it for this part. That's all.
Well, in a quick response to something you said, they mentioned Karstarks, Umbers, Manderleys, and Mormonts, and did not mention the Dustins, which I thought was interesting. It looks like you say. What were you say, Charlie?
Did they mention the Karstarks, Umbers, and Manderleys? Those were the 3, right? They mentioned 4.
I heard more. I thought I heard Mormont too. Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought I heard Mormont. No, TeeBaby.
I don't remember that either.
But we didn't get Dustins, so I think they're just cutting them. But we did hear Manderley, which is exciting. We still don't know for sure whether Rickon set the Umbers with the Skagos or whatever. Although I just looked at the evidence for the Skagos, or at least Manderley thinking he's with Skagos, is pretty strong. Yeah, so they're definitely trying to tie in this northern thing. Mama?
If I might just add on to the last thing you said before I talk about a few things, there was a casting call for a woman this season that really looked like Lady Dustin. So, again, they haven't set up her storyline with Brandon Stark and being in love with him and that kind of thing, so I don't know if it's her, but it sure sounded like her. So maybe they'll merge her character with somebody else to be a smart, older woman in Winterfell. Old Nan died after season 1 in real life, so she can't be that character for a number of reasons. She's probably too old. I think there'll be an older woman there. I mean, let's face it, we've got to have some older women in this show up at Winterfell, right? It's just balance. With respect to the Karstarks, and Charlie, you kind of nailed it after I raised my hand, my question was, are they friends or foes? And if they are going to merge them kind of with the Umbers and leave out the Alice Karstark thing and the kind of mirror of the Blackfyre Targaryen thing versus the real Targs, which is what was going on in the Karstark house, it sounds like that's going to be out, and for good reason. I'm curious as to whether that guy who was standing next to Ramsay is really on Ramsay's side or not. He may be a spy. With respect to the resurrection of Jon, Thoros of Myr said, I lost my faith, I said the words, but he was my friend. That's what brought him back. He was my friend. It's like praying false prayers that don't mean anything to you. At the end of all that chanting of Melisandre, when her doubt is the biggest in her, she says, please. And I think that's part of what brings him back, if indeed there is a mystical element to this and not something natural going on. Bran coming out of the cave is surprising to all of us. I think he will go back in that cave. However, this has been foreshadowed for a long time. Tyrion made a saddle for him to go and ride. Maester Lewin told him, where did you ever get the idea that you couldn't shoot an arrow? The Dothraki ride horses and shoot arrows from the age of 4. And there is a spoiler photograph of Bran riding a horse. So yeah, I think he's coming out of the cave. I don't think he'll stay long, but he's coming out. I do want to say something to you that I think is interesting, and Tony, I'm glad you're here at this point. I watched the video of Elia and Linda Garcia, who helped write the last non-book, but the encyclopedia. They said that Martin did not, of course, and we all know this, he didn't intend for this to be a 7-book series. He thought it would be a 3-book, pretty tight epic. And so when he was writing the story of how Dorne was going to be involved in this story, they feel, and I'm not sure they have an inside track per se, but they do know the history of how it was written. They saw some drafts. Martin didn't intend Dorne for fake Aegon to be there. Dorne was going to be behind Dany or a real Targ from the beginning. So I think they've cut through all that fake Aegon and kind of gone back to Martin's original premise, which is that Dorne would back Dany. They wanted it to be Viserys or Rhaegar, but of course they're gone now. And that kind of makes sense the way the show has done it. Now the problem in the books was that Quentyn went there to, quote, get control over a dragon and then marry Dany, and that didn't work out. But that's gone as well. So I think Dorne is indeed going to back Dany. And so they've got another force coming with them. So they've got the Dothraki and the Dornish. With respect to the Mel and Davos scene, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, is y'all asked, you know, why is, and a lot of people have said this, why is Davos on Mel's side when they've been against each other the whole time? Well, number one, their backs are against a wall. Number two, both of them thought Jon was pretty damn cool. And the last thing is that Davos is the one person who has seen Mel really do something magical, and that is to make that shadow baby. And when your back's against the wall, you're going to believe in something. You know, they say there are no atheists in the trenches in World War I. So he does turn to her. Now the question is, what's he going to think when he finds out, and he has not found out, how Shireen died. There is a scene from the trailer for the beginning of this series where Davos is standing over the burned pyres, and you know what's going to be next to that burned pyre is that tiny little stag that he actually carved for Shireen, and then he's going to know exactly what happened. Then we're going to see what happens between them, and there will be some conflict. And that's all I have to say about that. Go for it.
Great points, Mama. Who wants to go?
Can I step in? Sorry.
Yeah, Niko, go.
Can I just say something? Okay. I read somewhere that I was going to reply to this LaDonna's Dornish plot. thing. I read somewhere that actually David and Dan did not want to include Dorne at all, and that Brian Cogman forced them into it. He said, "Oh, it's going to be amazing," so that explains it. They were literally forced to. Yeah, yeah, it's not good, but yeah, they would probably support Danny because it's like all girl power now. So I can see it going that way, but I think they will try not to include them. Like just do a minimum of Dorne now because we all know what happened. Bad pussy. I don't know where Summer is. Like, we don't get mention of Summer, the wolf, Bran's wolf. Is he there? And like, what is he doing? And I'm gonna talk about 2 or 3 more things, but there's just random things, so I'm gonna let maybe Tony or whoever has something to say.
I read
Tony,
the same
I
thing.
called on.
I read the same thing, Niko. I call on people. I read the same thing about Brian Cogman. I think you're 100% right. That Brian Cogman told them we need to put Dorne in, so they put it in. So
Yes.
whatever we see for Dorne is not what was initially going to be there. Who would like to go next? Anybody want to add anything? Tony, why don't you say something?
I thought I did. I thought we were going
You did.
I don't want to take time from everybody else. People got stuff to say. Maester Payne, go ahead.
James, can I just
Can I add one more thing?
Dawn?
Hold on. Claire, go.
I wonder if what the show is doing, if they've got knowledge of what George's intentions are for Dawn, if maybe George is writing Doran's storyline as sometimes people who have the long game and the Doran's the grass, Oberyn with the snake, maybe it doesn't work out for them in the end, and maybe that's his message, is that after all of that plotting and planning and scheming over years and years and years, you still don't get what you want in the end. But what they've done is just sped it up in the show. So that was my point.
That's a great point, Claire. We can't say for sure till the end if that's what he was heading for, but that's a great point. Niko, you wanted to say something?
Yes, my point was, I don't know, like, when at the beginning I said this episode was not as good for me as the first one, and I think you can confirm it, or you can see it now, because we actually don't have much to say on it compared to the first episode. It's just all over the place, and it's things that we already discussed so many times. So that's what my problem was with this episode. It's just some things happen, some unexpected things, but they're not explained, like the Hodor thing and LaDonna and I don't know, whatever. Jon Snow's resurrection that we already expected. So much ado about nothing. You cannot really say enough anything because you don't have enough information.
Agreed, and we're going to have to wait till the end to really know for sure whether any of us are right. All right, unless anybody has anything else to add, let's move to some predictions. Charlie, I know you were thinking that you would like to say something on that, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry. Yeah, I had a few thoughts. I know next episode is called Oathbreaker, so no, I'm not going to make any major predictions for next episode, except for a few. Because it's named Oathbreaker, I think it's going to deal with a lot of characters who have broken their oaths, obviously. Part of the reason why I'm suspicious of the Umbers and the whole Rickon being brought from Last Hearth by the Umbers to Ramsay is because Oathbreaker, they're basically breaking their oath to protect their liege lord, who should be, in this case, Rickon. Unless it's a twist on that, and they're actually meaning to play their. They're trying to play their actual liege lord, who is Ramsay Bolton, since he is a warden of the North now. So you can see it either way, I guess, in that sense. So, and just went back on my prediction there anyway. We're going to see Dany at Vaes Dothrak because that was in the trailer first of all, but I think it's also her confronting Dadosh Khaleen, and I think they're not going to be very happy with her because that's where she was supposed to go after Khal Drogo died, and she didn't, of course, so she broke her oath to the Dothraki in a sense. It'll be interesting to see how they treat her there. I don't think we're going to get Drogon right away, although I would love to, but I don't think it's quite timely. I think it's more of a process of her settling in with the Dothraki and, refamiliarizing herself with that culture. Part of me starts to wonder if Arya might regain her sight, but I don't think so. I think it's going to be more of what we're getting already, except for perhaps we'll get more of Jack and Agar and maybe the waif scolding Arya or explaining to her why they took away her sight. This is her last chance, yada, 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 for breaking her oath. I'm a little worried we're going to get a lot of what we got in this episode in the sense that it's just going to be more, setting up certain plot devices. But I'm hoping it won't be just that. Obviously, we have the Tower of Joy, which is going to be a big thing, and I'm curious to see who they're going to refer to as the Oathbreaker in that scene in the episode. Wow, yeah, I really don't have any predictions at all. I'm kind of just going with the episode title here and saying different things. I will respond to what Tony said earlier, though. He said he mentioned about people thinking that Hodor would be at the Tower of Joy. I just want to clarify. While I do think Hodor might be a stand-in character for Howland Reed, I don't think he'd be going to the Tower of Joy per se. I think his whole losing his ability to speak would come a lot earlier in Hodor's storyline, like I mentioned earlier in the possibly the turn in Harrenhal potentially. Anyway, that's about it. I guess no Hodor next episode. Hodor will not be at the Tower of Joy. That's my big prediction for episode 3. Done.
Shocking. I gotta say, I really don't have any predictions. Any predictions I have would be based solely off the trailer for the next episode. I don't have any predictions. I am interested as shit to see what the fuck happens to the Tower of Joy and what the fuck Jon does now that he's up. Mama, go.
You guys have lots of predictions. You're just stuck on that episode. You know exactly what's going to happen. You guys, we've talked about it for a long time. The Oathbreaker, Charlie, I thought that was great about Dany. Yeah, she's supposed to go back to Bas Dothrak, and man, she doesn't freaking want to be with the old people and live in a retirement home. She's going to rally these people, and they're going to tell her to go to hell. She's supposed to live there for the rest of her life, and Drogon's going to come over, and that'll be the end of that. And she's got her army. With respect to Arya, I mean, come on, guys. Needle's hidden. She is only. Here's what I predict. She is going to go back, and it wasn't just the food and a place over her head. It was her sight restored. She's going to go back long enough to get that done. She's got to start some working powers. That's that cat scene that's been foreshadowed when the cat ran right before her path when Jaqen got her off the streets after she was first denied at the House of Black and White. So she's going to warg cat. They're going to make this very short and sweet. And by warging the cat, she can fight the waif because she can see what's going on even if her physical body cannot. But we also know this, and there are a million pictures on the internet. She is going to the theater, and she is going to be Mercy. And then I think Tony said this. She's going to get on a ship with Mace Tyrell and go back to King's Landing.
Hold up. Are these theories for next episode?
Well, I think it will be in the next couple episodes. So yeah, and that theater scene, this is the play. Well, God Almighty, Martin is a genius. This is the play within a play. This is the parody of King's Landing, just like Hamlet's play within a play was a parody of what had happened that caused the death of his father by sinister means between his mother and his uncle. It's so perfect. This is fantastic. Yeah, those things are going to happen. Jon's going to Winterfell. I'm not sure where Sansa's going yet. I'd still say she's going to Quiet Island. I'm going to stop talking about it. But at any rate, yeah, there are a lot of things that I think we can predict are going to happen. Cersei's going to go freaking crazy, and she and Tommen are going to be at odds. And by the way, Niko, you were talking about Jaime in that wonderful scene between he and the High Sparrow. He didn't confess his sins. The things he confessed were the good things he did. He killed the Mad King, and he let his brother go. Those aren't confessions. The one thing he didn't say is, I have been having incestual sex with my sister for years, and all these children are false kings and queens. He never said that. And when he finds out that Cersei has indeed been screwing his cousin Lancel, that is the end for Jaime and his non-arc, as Tony said. I'm going to argue with you, Tony, and I love you. Yeah, he's got an arc. He's going to say, that's it. You were not faithful to me. I've been faithful my whole life to you. I am the fuck out of here. There's my predictions.
All right. Claire, Maester Payne, what do y'all any theories for next episode?
Yeah, next episode specifically, just based on the trailer. I'd just like to ask everybody what you think's going to happen with Jon. What's he going to come back like? Is he going to be the same? We heard somebody in the background in the trailer saying something about some kind of god. So, what do we think Jon's going to appear as? We know that at a very practical level, he's outlived his vows. So, is he still going to be aligned to the Night's Watch? So, I'd like to ask everybody that. But I also think that the brief clip with what looks like an Umber saying to Ramsay, there's loads in this clip, it's a couple of seconds where he says, sorry, Marwyn's pushing on me back, that I have a gift for you, my lord. And obviously it's clipped together and you can see Ramsay with this huge smile on his face. So whatever the gift is, it's delightful for Ramsay, and I think the only two things it could be is either the threat to him as the Lord of Winterfell, i.e. Rickon, or Sansa. Somehow Sansa's been captured. I don't think it's going to be Sansa, and I think Rickon is going to make an appearance. I think he will be the poison gift, and I think he will be the Trojan horse for the Northern Lords. This would bring in on a very kind of watered down version the Great North Conspiracy, and I think in what will happen is Ramsay will do a version of the Pink Letter, and he will write to the Night's Watch and say, "Bastard, I've got Rickon, I've got come at me," and this will create the tension between the Night's Watch and the Bolton armies. Ramsay's going to think he's got it all sorted and he's got his northern houses behind him, and I think the Northern Lords will all turn on him in battle. I think it's a risky thing to do with Rickon. I think Rickon will be in on it. It will be something that Ramsay will it's the way to pull the wool over Ramsay's eyes, and I think we can go. I've got how I think the whole story arc will end with Theon in a kind of bittersweet way, where he gets his own personal redemption. I agree with what you're saying, James, about he's torn, but I think he's going to be torn between his allegiance to the Starks, and I think he's got his power back through Sansa, just in terms of being able to. I was saying in the comments, if you think of that prisoner of war mentality of, that subtle sabotage, so it's kind of smiling to the masters, but in the background there's this tinkering away with the system, which is why I think the hooded man analogy is a good one for Theon. And I think at the end he will do everything that he can to restore some sort of his own personal faith in the Starks or them in him, and he'll do some wonderful stuff, but ultimately at the end the Northern Lords will say, turn cloak, you're exposed, we found you, and that will be the bittersweet end for Theon. But anyway, that's going way beyond next episode, sorry. I want to know what you all think about Jon, what he's going to be like.
I do have one prediction, but first I'm going to ask Claire a question. Do you ever get to Thunderclap's point?
Yeah, just very quickly, a comment from Thunderclap about the resurrection. So again, this is a general question for everybody. The resurrection, what actually brought him back? So was it a combination of things? Was it a combination of Mel's magic? There's some kind of connection there with Ghost. What I said in our video was effectively Mel loaded the gun and Ghost fired the bullets, and that's what kind of brought Jon back. It was a combination of things. Thunderclap mentioned, and I don't think he's around in the comments, but he said maybe there was an opportunity there for the Night's King to be involved in the resurrection. Everybody else, there's nobody really there at the wall. Numbers are thin. He can. So was there something? Could the Night's King even been involved in Jon's resurrection somehow, and Jon's a wight or a thrall of the Night's King? There's a whole number of possibilities. I think we can go wild with predictions here, because look what they're doing with the show. It's just rushing through it so quickly, and I think we can get really crackpot in. Yeah, there's kin slaying left, right, and centre. Just in the last 2 episodes, everybody's there's Euron. There's about 3 or 4 different examples of kin slaying. The sand snakes. There's all this kin slaying going on. It's just so fast paced. So I think we can just go insane with our predictions.
The one prediction I have, which just stems from the title, and it goes from another comment in our video from a Jackie Hines, who said that she figures Benjen will be coming back this season, which I think more or less we all sort of agree on, whether or not it's cold hands or what. But next episode being titled Oathbreaker, I'm very curious if that's when Benjen returns to the show, because he's left the Night's Watch. Maybe he's done something oath-breaking-ish, because Night's Watch is all about vows and oaths. So that's essentially my only prediction. I don't even know if I can remember anything from the trailer at this point in time. Well, TOJ, of course, but that's going to happen. I predict that. That's it. Sorry, that's all I got.
Good stuff. Niko.
Okay, so I think that we're gonna get something bigger than Tower of Joy next episode. That they did not include in the trailer. They're keeping it for the. God damn it, James, you're in your cough. I smoke like a chimney, and I don't have that problem. You should go get it checked. Okay, so I think they're gonna do something really major because we had something really major. The first episode being Mel revealing Mel's background. Then this episode, second episode, was Jon Snow's resurrection, and I think they're gonna do another major thing in the third episode, and then and it's also gonna be a kind of a filler episode, and then they're gonna start a bit slower from the fourth. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not gonna say Lady Stoneheart, but it might be. Regarding what Claire said about the Night's King being responsible for it, I don't think that's true. Why? Because of the color of Jon Snow's eyes. They're the same, obviously, and you had Beric Dondarrion and you had Thoros of Myr. It just worked there, and he was miles away, so it just works. One thing about warging the cats and Arya. It might be. I would like to see that. I really, really would like to see that. I don't know if they're going to include that, and something funny came to my mind. What if she's warging a cat while fighting this waif girl, and the cat is like facing Arya, so she needs to learn left and right mirrored. It would be funny because it would not work. It's just a stupid thing that I thought of. Now, Oathbreaker. It's really hard now to see because there are all these oaths, and everybody's like, oh my, also, whatever, righteous, but nobody really is. Who's gonna break the oaths? Really good point, MP on Benjen. I really love that. Maybe we'll get Benjen this episode. It would be really fun to see that. But you see, judging from this first and second episode, we cannot really make any really good predictions because we're in the uncharted territory, and it's really hard. I will mention the fucking Ollie thing because people keep asking me about this. So, what's going on is that I don't care about Ollie, really. I don't think he's important. Fuck Ollie, really. But I understand why people were so outraged at my point that, don't kill Ollie because who gives a fuck. I was thinking about that, and the problem is that I asked myself why people are so want to kill Ollie, but they are not concerned with really killing machines like Robert Strong. And they don't want Robert Strong. Nobody, there's no army of people out there on the internet like, oh, kill the fucking Robert Strong because he's crazy. And I think I know why. The answer is betrayal. People are really, really crazy about this, because you can connect it to real life. When somebody really betrays you, you see it that way. And Robert Strong, he's just a killing machine for Cersei, and he's not really betraying anyone. It's not so personal. And so I understand, but I still don't care about Ollie and just leave it be. It's not important. I loved, because we're just talking in general now, I loved what LaDonna said about cosmic horror and Lovecraft connection. And yeah, I'm obsessing about this. And I think we can connect that to Hodor more than, as I mentioned earlier, something really, like when somebody hit him in the head. He had to see something really, really stressful. And I'm obsessing about this cosmic shit, obviously, but to the point I don't know if you guys in the chat read this really amazing book by Lovecraft. It's called The Mountains of Madness. If not, you should read it. It's really good. And it's at the South Pole, and I want to go work at Ice Cube at the station, Amos's station at South Pole, just to feel this emptiness, because there's nothing there. Just a bunch of scientists, like sitting, but it's amazing. And I would hope that I will get there one day. What else? People ask me a lot about my tattoos on the wrist. It's Egyptian gods. It's hieroglyphs. So that's it.
Wereglyphs? Bad joke.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Sorry.
You said hieroglyphs. I said wereglyphs. TeeBaby, give us some predictions.
I agree with Niko. I think it's going to be harder and harder to kind of really predict what's going to happen. I do believe that if Rickon is the gift, he will die next episode. I just don't see Ramsay holding on to him the way that he got his father out. So if we do see Rickon, he's the gift. Don't get used to him. He'll be dead soon. I do like the idea that we could see, not Blood Raven, but one of those Starks, I forget. I do like that idea, but based off of the trailers, I think we're going to see more conflict with Tommen now, and also I think we're going to see... I'm really interested to see the Tower of Joy. Not so much the fighting, but what happens after we pass the fighting and we go in to see what's going to happen, like what happened at the Tower of Joy to kind of just spark this whole thing with Jon. And I am excited to see how they react to Jon. So I think a lot of people are going to be scared, but I think Ollie, that's what I was meant to say. I think Ollie might die. And I think Alistair, he might die because they did. Well, Ollie didn't, but that's just me wanting Ollie to go. But I think that not Torn, but Alistair, I think he dies, and I think Jon's the one that's going to do it.
Very interesting. Tony, you got any predictions?
I really don't have many predictions for the next episode. I just hope that the episode is good and they do a good job on it.
Yeah, no kidding. You think that they'll have difficulty beating this one, or you think they're building up to better and better episodes?
I don't trust them whatsoever, especially trying to do a couple of good episodes in a row. So we'll see if they can pull that speed off.
I'm hoping they're building up, and I think that's their intent, and that makes me feel like maybe the first few are meant to cut ties on a lot of different storylines. I'm letting everybody know that we're doing the Q&A.
Can I say one
James,
thing?
LaDonna, and MP.
Yeah, absolutely, MP.
One thing from the trailer for next episode ends with "This is where it begins and this is where it ends." The famous line from the TOJ. I hope that it gives us a resolution for RLJ or anything like that. This is where it begins, or this is where it ends. I hope that that's the point, that they included that into that trailer for, because it is the main theory, and I hope we get to see some sort of resolution about it. That's all I had to say. And LaDonna.
If I might, MP, because this is kind of where I was going, and then you said this comment. For you non-book readers and the book readers, and again, not being arrogant, the Tower of Joy is so very important, and this is why it's important. Ned Stark is tracking his beloved sister, and we saw how much he loved her in the Winterfell scene. He's tracking his beloved sister, who he truly believes, maybe, that she has been abducted by Rhaegar. And again, this is a huge mystery. I don't even know if Ned knew she loved him. I don't know. Benjen did, because he made a joke to her about her crying at the tourney at Harrenhal when Rhaegar was singing sad songs about leaving. So if Ned was that clueless about how she loved him, maybe he just thought she's betrothed to Robert and it's duty and honor and all that stuff. But Benjen knew she loved him. She dumped a whole glass of wine over Benjen's head at that tourney after he made fun of her. But here's my point. Ned tracks her, and I've said this before, after the war, when Ned should have gone home, he tracked her all the way down to Dorne. That's why we saw that tracking scene of the direwolf with Ned tracking him in the very first episode. He tracked her all the way down through Dorne. That's a long way. The thing about the scene that I really want you all to feel is heartfelt is that the Kingsguard there is protecting their queen and the heir to the throne, not just the heir, because remember, Rhaegar was married to another woman and had 2 children. They're protecting a child who is the child of prophecy, one of the 3 heads of the dragon. So when you see Ned and his 7 fight against those 3 at the Tower of Joy, this is like the Brienne and Hound fight. You're not going to be able to choose who's right. And that's why when we saw that scene where Sir Arthur Dayne, the Sword of the Morning, says, "And so it begins," and Ned says, "No, now it ends." Who do you root for? And this is kind of what Martin is saying about history. Who do you root for? And why are we fighting? And why can't we make peace? And is there some manifest destiny or prophecy that might just set this world right with this union of families of ice and fire?
Agreed, Mama. And that's kind of played with, too, by the fact that Ned remembers themselves as being wraiths and the other ones being made of light. All right, let's do some Q&A and get out of here.
Okay.
Can I ask something? Can I add something?
Sure.
I just thought of the thing because somebody said, "Where's Littlefinger?" What if Littlefinger brings the gift to Ramsay?
But we know it's the guy, the Karstark guy. You're saying that somebody brings the gift to this Karstark guy? That Littlefinger brings it to the Karstark guy, and the Karstark
how do we
gives it to
know it's
Ramsay?
Karstark?
Isn't that the Karstark guy that we saw in that room? I might be wrong about that. I thought that was the Karstark guy. Yes, the Karstark guy that was... I thought that in the trailer that was the same. I could be wrong. I thought that was the same Karstark guy that was in the room when Ramsay killed her.
Much bigger beard.
Oh, did he?
I thought that was an Umber, but...
I'm an ex.
Well, maybe it's the Umber then. Okay, I may be wrong. I just thought of the idea, so that's
interesting.
Why. I also want to say to all people who are Terry Pratchett fans, if you're not, you should be. I love Terry Pratchett. And I watched a movie with my husband last night, made based on the book by Terry Pratchett called Going Postal. And Tywin Lannister, Charles Dance, is in the movie, and also Dolores said. So people, it's a really good movie. It's a really good book. Make sure to watch it. It's amazing. It's amazing.
All right, we'll check it out. Okay, so Q&A. Anybody wanna? We'll go one by one on these. We'll go two questions, and everybody will answer them real quick. Why does David Adams? Big fan of David Adams, makes great comments. Why does Bloodraven look worried in that Tower of Joy scene in the trailer? And another one. Is he?
I have an idea why.
Do you think that
Why
the
is he
dragons
worried?
have made some dragon eggs underneath the pyramid? That's why they went inside. All right, we'll go one by one. Niko, you want to answer that one? Mister?
I think Bloodraven is worried about because in this second episode you see that when they have the vision, they're together in the vision, whatever the memory, Bran and Bloodraven, and they're overlooking the whole scene on this porch or whatever the shit is, the balcony. Just like Ned, when we had the first episode, Ned and Kat were overlooking the fighting scenes. And then at one point, Bloodraven turns and Bran's not there anymore. So maybe it would just show the how powerful Bran is compared to Bloodraven, that he can, maybe Bran will try to do something. You know, like to manipulate, or which is kind of impossible, but okay, maybe something like that. Why would he be worried? I mean, it's already done. The past is already written.
Regarding the dragon eggs, it looks like I was selected. Regarding the dragon eggs, I don't think there's that they have dragon eggs, although that's a really interesting idea. Them having dragon eggs inside that cave. Regarding the Tower of Joy scene, if he looks worried, I think this is all a manipulation. So one way or another, the visions that Bran is getting is intended to train him, but don't think Bran's supposed to get the whole story, and they're intentionally trying to keep him from the whole story. Charlie, what do you think?
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
No, that's cool. Again. I think we're all about to fucking pass the fuck out, except for Niko and my mom. Do you think we're going to see the White Walkers in episode 3? I don't think so. I think they're holding off on them till near the end, although not near the end, but they want to set us up before we see the White Walkers again. Anybody else? Tony, what do you think? White Walkers, what episode?
Not next episode, I'll tell you that.
You think we're going to get them like halfway or near the end? What you think?
Well, it all depends how far they plan on going. I think after Bran's visions, whatever his last vision he sees, that's when the White Walkers will come and attack the tree.
Nice. Okay, the second question I asked was by Amazing Haya66, and Ginger Casante asked the second one, or the third one. Not seeing a whole lot. Do we know the sexes of the dragons?
They can be the sex they want.
We talked about this before. They're referred to as she or he interchangeably, but as far as we can tell, there is no sex, and it's kind of, we don't know how they have babies. If anybody disagrees with me, let me know. Well, members of the... Yeah, go, Claire.
I was just going to say there was a couple of quick questions from earlier on. So
okay, nice, do it.
Do we think we're going to see Sam and Gilly next episode, or when do you think we're going to see them? And secondly, what happened to Bran?
That's a good question about Bran.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get Sam and Gilly next episode, only because it's the third episode and we haven't seen them yet, and I feel like if they're going to be on the boat, we're going to need some progression. But I don't know. And that's a great question about Bran. That makes me think Bran's on a mission somewhere. I don't know. Tony, what were you going to say?
About Bran, I don't know where Bran is. I think you'll see him when Jaime goes to the Riverlands. I think until then you won't see him.
Good point.
As far as like the whole thing I said about the White Walkers, to clarify it a little bit, what I meant was after his last vision, I think when the Night King grabs him, that's the final vision Bran is having. And then after that, that's when Bloodraven be like, oh, he's seen you, he came here, you gotta go, he found you, we gotta get out of here. And I think that's what I escape. That's what I think's gonna happen.
Can I jump in one thing?
Yeah.
And sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, and it's probably not answering anybody's question. But
Do it, Maester Payne.
That I missed. I don't know if anybody spoke about it yet, but Bloodraven grabs Bran this episode to wake him out of the dream. What's the touch that the Night King gives Bran? Is that the same thing, or is that holding him in? It's sort of the same thing that we got from the trailer when the Night King grabs him. So that's all I had to say. Tony just jumped that into my head.
It's a great point. Great point. And we get this touching thing bringing you out, and then we know the Night King's going to touch him at some point.
Your mom wants to say something.
Yep. Do it, Mama.
I think this is the last thing I'm going to say. That scene where Jaime is in the intimate scene with the High Sparrow talking about his sins that aren't sins, and then he is surrounded by all these people who come out of the shadows as the Faith Militant surrounding him. That was a foreshadowing for Kevin Lannister's death with the daggers. The daggers. Jaime even pulls a dagger. Yeah, it's a shame. I hope they do give that scene to Kevin and Varys. I don't know how Varys will get back there, but it would be lovely.
Can I say something? It's not a prediction of mine because it's not something that I thought of. I just saw, prior to starting the panel tonight, I saw a post on Watchers on the Wall. Game of Thrones actually released a few photos that are extra from the, it's not just from the trailer, but extra photos.
Mhm.
The most interesting one to me is Qyburn with a lot of small children. Did you see that?
Nope.
It's amazing. Yes. Yeah. So it's not Varys, it's actually, so
Well, you know
make sure
what?
to check this post.
You know what, Niko? Somebody who had read more in depth in this particular area of the books had, it might have been Preston, I'm not sure, but had connected Qyburn back to Dorne. And if Varys is trying to put a Targ back into power, and if Dorne is trying to put a Targ back in power, then it would make sense for Qyburn to do that in the terms of the political intrigue. That's fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna try to find that picture now. I have to mute myself. Sorry.
All right. Has anybody got any more questions? I see.
There's a bunch of questions. Do you think Sir Robert Strong has parts of Robert Baratheon on him? No. But do you think Robert Strong has any other parts on him that's not his own? How about that?
Rob.
Yeah.
It's Rob's head.
It's Rob Stark's head. I agree.
I would argue Ned's head because he's beheaded and it's covered in tar, so you got thick black blood. That would be my argument that way.
It's the mountain's head, I say. As well as his body.
Oh, we got a lot of different opinions on that
That's
one.
too easy, Charlie. That's too easy.
Who's
Maybe
going to
you're
be
making
the
it
next?
too hard.
I think it's an easy one. Who's the next Lord Commander of the Night's Watch?
What do you mean next? John's back.
No, he's released. It's Ed. It's Dolorous Ed.
There you go. I think Ed too. That's who I would say if I had to pick anybody.
Sorry, what did you, Charlie, say about the Robert Strong's head? Whose?
They were asking who we thought was on the head of Robert Strong. I just said it was the mountain's head. It's the same head that came with the body.
John said.
At least in the,
Charlie
at least in
said
the
it's
show.
all.
They sent the mountain's
I think
head
it's
back to Dorne.
Strong Star.
They sent the mountain's head
Why
back
name him Robert Strong?
because it means
Why
Rob
name him
Stark.
Robert Strong? Exactly.
Told you, Niko.
Exactly.
It's Rob Stark's head. I'm telling you. If I'm wrong, I'll hoist 2 beers to everybody.
If you use a Frankenstein parallel, it's supposed to be 8 different body parts, right?
No, I haven't heard that. You're reading Frankenstein.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. If it's supposed to be a Frankenstein parallel, it's 8 different body parts.
You know
I
what's
don't know.
You know what's interesting about that, MP, is that Frankenstein starts out in the polar ice caps. God help me if the mountain ends up north.
If that's true, that means that Qyburn's been making the 8. That's a really bad joke. But thanks.
Sweet mystery of life, at last I found you.
Probably.
We don't call ourselves a Fang game for nothing. You ready, girls?
Oh my God, that echoes to the whole thing.
I felt like I was on the Howard Stern show here.
We're the whack pack, no question.
The whack pack.
Claire, I love you, Claire.
Hey, here you go. You want a crazy question? Here's one. What are your thoughts on the theory that Hodor warged into Lyanna's horse? Go ahead.
No!
What the fuck is going on?
Hey,
Oh,
that's how.
As Aussie Man said, Bran's tripping balls, and so are you all.
Horse store.
May I answer that question? Yes.
Oh, God!
You're full of shit, Niko. Full of shit.
That's worse than the bolt-on theory.
The bolt-on theory is a good theory, whether it's true or not. It's a cool. So what the fuck do you mean it's worse than that?
Well, let me say this. Anybody who thinks Shara Dane is Jon's mother is crazy, since she is not in the fucking show.
It's pretty obvious. Who's
books
not.
either.
I think she... No.
All right,
I think it's time.
it's time. I love all you. Until next time, and we actually did pretty damn well. It ended up being 3 hours exactly again, and we ended up getting sidetracked. So I think we did all right. Thank y'all for being here. Have a great. Yes. What? Huh? Hugh? Were you saying something? Were you? I think I was. Were you?
Do you want me there to take care of your dogs this weekend or not?
Man, if you don't, they're gonna be let go, and you'll feel guilty.
Charlie, don't do that by your ear again, Charlie. It looks crazy.
What?
What was that when you put by your ear?
It's a safety clip for like food.
Yeah,
On my desk. I'm just playing with it.
James, 800 people have said change your fucking calendar.
I don't have time to change shit. I got home and I immediately had to do this video, and after I'm done here, I'm immediately going to bed, and I'm waking up as soon as 4 hours of fuck. You leave me the goddamn hell alone.
Oh, look what I got today, by the way. I
What you
forgot.
got?
Hold on. Y'all see it? Knight's King?
Oh yeah, let's fucking focus on that. Here we go.
Bring on that, people.
Yeah, baby. Is that the one that glows in the dark?
Yep.
That's $100 fucking.
What?
Yes, because I almost got it for James, and I got him the regular one.
$14.99.
Holy shit.
So it's like
it was $100. Will you mail me one? I'll pay you back.
They was trying to put one on you.
Send me a message on Facebook.
What likely happened, Mama, is that somebody exhausted the supply of some chain of the place and then was selling them for way more than their going price.
That's insane. I saw like 5 of them were sitting at EB Games.
$100 is Tickle Me Elmo prices in its prime. And that was the craze. $100 is like the Cabbage Patch Kid dollar.
Look at Niko's face. Niko's like, what the fuck is a Tickle Me goddamn Elmo?
What?
I didn't grow up in the U.S. I don't know what you're talking about.
Tickle Me Elmo was a crazy situation when that came out. Trust me.
Hey,
Is that like a sex toy?
No, what?
It can be.
Listen,
Don't knock it till you tried it.
Hey,
it was a
Tony,
Yes.
let me tell you something. My sister, who was never married, loved all of our children because she never had any. She spent a God bless it fortune one year at Christmas and gave us that ginormous big bird that you could put tapes in the back of it and it would talk and its mouth would do that. James got it immediately and put it in the bathtub.
The Night's King is revealed.
You can still put a tape in it, but it had no more free will.
All right, good night. I love you
Good night.
guys.
I love y'all. Y'all are the shit.
I
All
love you
right.
guys.
Thank y'all for being here. Teflon, I'm sorry we didn't see you the whole time. We'll see you
No, I'm
next time.
sorry that I couldn't get here, but I will be here. All
I
time.
fucking hope your car's fixed, but man, that sucks. Sorry.
It's all good.
All right.
Peace.
Later.
Ciao, ciao.